clicking the button. Give it just a second. So how's it going, my Comic Chat Army? We're here today with Ken Perry, the inker and colorist for Shelter Division, right?
I'm the artist. I actually don't do the colors, but that's okay.
Artist. So, how did you meet Sourcepointpress? How did you get linked up with them?
I was originally working with some people at Comics Experience. It's a comic kind of collective. It's a school, online school by Andy Schmidt, who's worked for DC, Marvel. He did like Annihilation and Guardians of the Galaxy. I had met somebody, a writer, through Comics Experience, and we made Wretched Things, and we got chosen through Comics Experience and SourcePoint for them to publish the book. They were running a publishing deal for a while, and they were doing some Comics Experience books. So.
Nice. And we can get your book at any comic shop, right?
Yes. They can be ordered through comic shops, through SourcePointpress website. If you contact me, I can steer you in the right direction. Most of our graphic novels are on Simon & Schuster as well. So.
How long have you been drawing for?
Long time, since I was a kid. I grew up in a shitty neighborhood. So at a young age, it became I could just go outside and keep getting in trouble, or I could stay inside and occupy my time somehow. So.
I agree. So what got you into comic book art?
I like telling stories through the artwork. I have a degree in painting and sculpture, and even like my fine art stuff was very not sequential, but I tried telling a story within the painting or the sculpture itself. There was always some sort of narrative to it. So it seemed kind of the next step.
And what pages do you have right there behind you? Is that Kylo Ren, the third one?
This one is Darth Maul by Dave Dorman, who did all the painted covers, Star Wars covers, back when I was a kid. So.
And what's the other?
Gordon of Gotham by Klaus Janson. Steve Scott it's a Judge Dredd. It's
yeah.
Judge Death in the background, and I have a Ryan Otley on that side. A beat up Invincible, which is always a classic one that he does. So.
Oh yeah. Comic Cons. Are you going to any Comic Cons recently?
I think my last one was a local one in Fairhaven, Mass. Before that, I was in DC, Boston. I couldn't go to New York. I had a close contact, so I had to stay home from that one. So.
Since you're the artist, do you ever draw yourself or family into the comics somewhere?
Oh yeah, I always try to do that. You got to sneak things in, hidden images. Sometimes it might be something subtle, like a background element, like a building you like, or you try and throw a dig at somebody that you're friendly with. There's some people that you know, artist friends. You try and throw something at each other.
All right. And what is I don't think of the name of the book. When is issue 2 coming out?
Shelter Division. Issue 1 is currently in comic book shops. This is the retailer cover. Issue 2 will be out February 23rd, which by the time this airs, it'll already be out there. Issue 3 is the end of March. So. They're all new covers now. We did run a Kickstarter that had special covers for all the books, and we had a hardcover edition that we did as well. This can actually still be bought through the SourcePoint website.
Nice.
My first hardcover I've had done. So
are these your first books ever?
No, Wretched Things I had done before this. That was a 4-issue book. That was basically you had this old Victorian house that the vermin took over, the rats, the spiders, the centipedes, all the creepy crawly things. They took over this old Victorian house. A young couple buys the house. They move in and try and fix it up, but the vermin rise up against them. It's like a twisted secret of Nim which already scarred a whole generation of children. So
where do you draw your inspiration from?
A lot of it comes from work, kind of the grittiness. I'm a professional firefighter, so I see the other side of kind of not the pleasant side of things. So I've been to plenty of car accidents and seen some carnage. So you kind of take that and throw that in, you know.
I get what you're saying. So really quick about your firefighter career, is it like a 9 to 5, or you just on the call?
We work an 8-day rotation, so we do 24-hour shifts. So this week I can work Monday and Thursday, and then next week I'll be doing Tuesday and Friday. But it's 7 a.m. to 7 a.m.
Okay, and you just is it like you see in the movies? You got beds and everything, and you get to slide down a pole.
We've actually gotten away from sliding down the poles. It's the whole like cancer, carcinogens. They've actually been sealing up the pole holes at work. Wow. They're trying to discourage using them. Diesel exhaust comes up through the space around there. So it's still fun to do. I mean, some of the stations have them still, and we still use them every once in a while. But it's you can be a little kid. Right.
Yeah. That's crazy that I didn't even think about the carbon monoxide coming up there.
Yeah, I mean, just the diesel exhaust, a lot of things are changing with the job. The gear we wear is actually, not to get crazy into it, it's fluorinated. The stuff actually, it's PFAS and PFOA. It actually causes cancer. I don't know if you see the commercial about, are you a former military firefighter that worked with firefighting foam and they had all these lawsuits going on? We actually still use that foam, and the gear we use that we wear, the turnout gear, is actually made from that stuff. Wow. One of the guys I work with is actually, him and 12 other guys got together, and they're actually suing the chemical manufacturers because they've never really told anybody and revealed to anybody how dangerous this stuff really is. They play the game of, you're walking into a burning building that's got all, everything's plastic nowadays. That stuff burning plastic will cause cancer. So they point at that and say that's what did it. But really, it's also the gear you're wearing is hurting you too. So it's a whole crazy side of things.
Yeah, that's super fucked up. Like for you to wear the gear to protect you, and it's just harming you.
Yep.
Do you do consultations for art?
Yeah, I will talk to anybody about process and how I work. A lot of times at conventions, I get people who come up to me and they just want me to look at their work. A lot of times people contact me, just to reach out and do a commission. Sometimes it's the writer that wants me to do their 100-page epic, for exposure, which you kind of brush off to the side. But I'll talk to anybody about art or creating.
What's the most common mistake you see people make in art?
Probably trying to, not oversell yourself, but you're overpromising. People don't realize how much work actually goes into getting a comic finished and printed and out there. It's time consuming, and it's a full-time job in itself. I mean, if you're trying to break in or you're doing it on the side, you got to realize that some people actually do this as a career, a full-time career. So it's going to take a while.
So how did the Kickstarter work? Did y'all do the Kickstarter? Then when it was funded, Sourcepointpress distributed it?
Yes, we did the Kickstarter actually probably 2 springs ago.
Wow.
And we had, the world turned upside down about 2 years ago, and it was kind of bad timing on our part because right in the spring we're like, buy our book, and everybody's panicking that the world's ending. And it was successful. We were selling them at conventions, but it totally, with everything going on, it messed up the actual publishing schedule. So for now, we've actually it's the same books, but we put different covers on, and now we're selling them to retailers too. So.
Do you have the diamond code on you by chance?
No, but I can forward it to you.
All right, I'll add it down in the description.
Yep.
So what are you working on now? If all three are finished, what books can we expect from you in the future or later this year?
Currently, I'm working on day 165, which might be coming to Kickstarter soon. I'm not sure if we're doing a Kickstarter or if we're going directly to retail. I'm looking at my board over there that has all my projects on it. Day 165, it's a Vietnam War story, kind of a spooky war story. If you follow me on social media, you'll see I have all these jungle scenes and action and Huey helicopters, all Vietnam stuff. I'm also working on Salvagers with Bob Sally. It's his space opera. It's kind of like Sanford and Son meets Star Wars. We're really dating ourselves with the Sanford and Son reference, but there's all these wrecks out in space, and they go out and they salvage them. But while they're salvaging, they get mixed up with black ops and aliens, and all kinds of craziness happens. So there's 10 issues. I'm jumping in to help him with the final 2 issues of this story arc. So in the end, it's going to be 6 double issue sized issues. So.
Okay. What social medias are you on?
I do Instagram and Facebook. I tried Twitter, but I couldn't take it anymore.
Yeah, I think Twitter's more for politics.
Yeah, I try not to get into that. Nobody's ever happy with anybody else, so I try to stay away from all that stuff. Facebook, you can find me at Ken W. Perry, and on Instagram, it's Ken Perry Art. But I post the same things on both.
All right. Let's see. What Comic Cons are you going to locally?
So far, I just have Wicked Comic Con in April. It's April 9th. They used to run Boston Comic Con, but now they're running their own. I'll be at Boston, which is in August. Terrificon in Connecticut, that's in the end of July. So I only have 3 so far, but I'll be doing more. It's just early in the year still.
All right. What advice would you give people that want to run a successful Kickstarter?
It's a lot of work. It's definitely a roller coaster. Every day, like that first day, you get a lot of pledges, and then it kind of tapers off, and it's a roller coaster every day. You're constantly checking it. Just have a lot of good rewards there, and definitely fulfill it. Nothing is worse than somebody getting strung along for months and months with no updates. Deliver on your promises is the big thing, because then that's your reputation from there.
All right. Do you have a website or anything?
Yes, kenperryart.com. I post process stuff on there. A lot of my past work, I'll show like my inks. I do some videos on there, but I post where I'll be, where you can find me, what books I have coming up.
Perfect. Do you sell any of your original art?
Yeah, a lot of times at conventions, I'll have my portfolio on the table. Some people kind of expect it to be cheap. I'm getting too old to be cheap, so I definitely I have my prices up there, but I do fairly well. I make almost as much from original art as actual book sales. So
nice. Yeah. Do you have a favorite page from issue 1?
Issue 1, I actually didn't do. I jump in partway through issue 2. Issue 1, it's not my art, but I love the style. It's got a lot of action to it. Probably my favorite part of that book would be the reveal for Biggs, which is the son of Bigfoot. basically Shelter Division. It's this government agency. They solve strange crimes by using these unusual individuals. You've got Biggs, who's the son of Bigfoot, Chaplin, who's an immortal, but he's got pieces of him all chopped off. He doesn't know how immortal he really is. And you have Roswell, who's the Roswell alien.
Nice.
And by providing these people with shelter, these unusual people with shelter, in exchange for that, they help the government solve these crimes. And that's where it all starts, is these crazy thefts of high-tech gadgets and stuff.
So what was it going to spell out without it being redacted to say shelter?
Oh, I can't tell you that. That's part of the...
Is it part of the story?
Yes, eventually. Me and Bob, once I get Salvagers done, I'm doing the pencils for Salvagers. We're going to move over back to the next series of Shelter Division, the next volume. So that's hopefully by the spring, I'll be working on the next volume of that. And we can get it going by hopefully the fall.
Okay.
Get it out to people.
And then little pieces of the redaction's going to go away to spell something else?
It will eventually, yeah.
Right.
There's a lot of mystery to it. That it's kind of got a spookiness and overall mystery to it, kind of like, I guess you could say, like X-Files, where you keep revealing little bits and pieces of people's pasts and how they came together. But it's the government; they're gonna fuck with people and screw with them. So,
yeah, okay. What advice would you give to people coming into comics for the first time?
Just don't let anybody take advantage of you. There's a lot of people out there. I think early on, when I was trying to break into things, I signed up with people, and you find out right away that they're not what they say they are. You know, a lot of people try acting like they have something going on, or people will get contracts too. People will promise the world to you, but then they don't follow through. You know, there's no payment. So always cover yourself. You'd probably be the best advice.
What do you do in a situation like that you do the art but don't get paid?
I had a situation where I did a zombie book. It was a novel that this guy had written. I illustrated some of the pages for him, and later on he wanted to do like an open-ended run, and I tried to tell him that we never negotiated like you only had this one run of the book. And it became a sticking point for us, to the point where he's publishing the book now without those pictures in it. It just always have things outlined in a contract, who has rights to what, how much you're entitled to, whether it's work for hire, like you're just getting paid to draw the pages with no royalties. There's always that sliding scale, and that's how I work with people. Like, if we're going to split things with royalties, I might not take as much up front, but if I'm getting all up front, you're not getting royalties. Just outline everything in the contract, and entertainment rights too. Everything nowadays, like Netflix and all these shows that they have, a lot of it's coming from comic books, graphic novels. So there's money to be had out there, so don't get screwed out of it. You see a lot of Robert Kirkman is a serial offender. He's got some great work out there, but at the same time, you see his name in a lot of headlines over stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. All right, Ken. Is there anything you want to say before we go?
Nah, just if you're a creator, just keep on kicking ass and sticking to it. And if you're a consumer and you love this stuff, buy more of it. Support us.
All right. Thank you for taking the time to come talk with us.
All right. Have a good day.
How's it going, my Comic Chat Army? We're here today with Gregory Wright, the creator of, and my phone just went off, Hellstrom, Wild Bullet, Monstrous, and coming to the list, Heaven's Rejects.
Yep.
Right?
Yes.
So what have you been doing in the whole year we haven't spoke?
I've got a lot of irons in the fire. I got a lot of projects, and they're in different stages, so it's hard to talk about some of them. But to keep going with Monstrous, that's the next thing that's going to be in previews. It's art by Shay Han and letters by Justin Birch. and it's called Monstrous, the Book of the Dead. So it's a mummy story. All 4 issues are a father-daughter mummy team trying to resurrect the missing mother mummy, if you will, and they are using the Book of the Dead to try to figure out why are they alive and she's not. And so eventually it winds up becoming kind of like a Mission Impossible Tomb Raider style heist as they're trying to break into the pyramid to get her back. And so they have to avoid all the booby traps. It's a lot of fun. It's like anybody who has ever gotten into like Indiana Jones or like I said, Tomb Raider, things like that. It's a wild ride. Like if you love the Mummy movies, you'll love this because it's a lot of sort of fast-paced action, steampunk, mummy, Egyptian gods show up. It's a lot of fun. It's really cool.
Heaven's Rejects. Tell us about that one. I'm curious to hear.
So Heaven's Rejects is a project that the pencils and inks and letters are all Scott Sackett, and the colors are from Fabi Marquez, and we have colors by Alex Monique. And it's what Heaven's Rejects is about. That's the next thing that's coming out this year, and I'm real excited about that one too. So 3 foul-mouthed angels get kicked out of heaven, and so they're freelancing good guys on Earth, and they go up against hellworms that come out of the evil Pope's ass, and crazy stuff like that. They wind up working for demons because the demons pay better, because it's really hard to make a living doing good and pay the rent. And it's kind of like, what if Charlie's Angels were real angels? So like they like I said, they kick a lot of ass. They're funny. They're foul-mouthed. It's sort of like if you had a bunch of it's kind of like Deadpool with wings.
Nice.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. And Scott Sackett, the artist, recently watched well, not recently, but I guess it just came out fairly recently. The Suicide Squad, the second Suicide Squad movie called The Suicide Squad. He watched this and he's like, I totally understand now what we're doing in Heaven's Rejects, because they basically like, it's that very much that sort of a wavelength. He's like, okay, I can see how there can be an audience for this because people like this, and I think they're going to love our comic. So there's a little bit of Hellboy to it. There's a little bit of, kind of just action adventure stuff. But yeah, these three angels, very funny, and also it's kind of set in the time of Charlie's Angels. So like there's kind of this late 70s, early 80s vibe. Okay. They go to the mall. They go to a camp. They do a cross country cannonball run style race across the country. It's gonna be fun for everybody. It's gorgeous art too.
Is this all in the first issue, or is this the span of the whole series?
It's going to be a four issue story, and there's an overarching story, but there's also little stories. So it's kind of like Matt Fraction's Hawkeye, where there's a self-contained story, but then there's also, it connects to these other things here. But like that's sort of just in the background. So yeah, they in the first issue, they wind up signing a deal with the demons that they're going to work for them. And it makes sense because it's like, okay, well, they're taking out evil's rivals. So they're fighting evil while they're, getting paid. So it's like, well, that's exactly what they want to do, except that it's like, well, they're helping these bad guys. So that's kind of the tension there. In the first one, they have a bunch of adventures in Detroit. The second one, like I said, they go to the mall. The third one, they go as undercover camp counselors with all the 80s camp movie stuff, bringing in Easter eggs there. And then in the fourth issue, they go on that, they call it the Speed Demon Run. It's like the Cannonball Run, where they go across the country in a road race with all these different mythological creatures. There's Gorgons, and there's a Kraken, and wizards, and a broke down van full of stoners, and that sort of thing. It's very, very, very funny.
I'm going to pick this up. I got to get this book. Do you have a diamond code already?
I don't for that one. It starts soliciting late spring, early summer. The next one that's going to be solicited is the Monstrous, the Book of the Dead. So So yeah, that's it. But they're going to overlap the runs and previews of those two. They're going to overlap a little bit, I think. So.
All right, I'll come back and add them when the codes come out to the
Oh,
interview.
fantastic! That would be fantastic.
So, do the angels want like U.S. currency, or do they have like angel bucks, or?
Oh no, they're like, so they've been banished to Earth and they just got to pay the rent. They
okay.
They work. They have an office with a guy who's, like I said, like they're Charlie. Except his name is Harold Angel, and it says right on his office door, like the Christmas Carol. And yeah, it's that kind of a thing. It's
I love it.
They meet a hipster succubus on the street, and they have to, like, he's trying to come on to them and stuff like that. It's really cool. I wanted to get that as one of the backgrounds here, but the background thing wasn't working. So I'll have to send you. I think I actually did send you some of the covers. Did I?
Yeah, I think you did. If you did, I'll add it in on post when I'm doing it.
Very cool.
What conventions are you going to?
I'm not really
covers.
I feel like this. Yeah, I like, my schedule is up in the air. I haven't really pinned down a lot. I know that I will be doing some this spring, but yeah, I haven't really finalized my schedule with SourcePoint, unfortunately. I was just there the other day, and every time, because when I go and visit the office or the warehouse or whatever, like, I'm always like, I got to talk about these things, and I got like a huge to-do list, and I always forget something. So I'm glad I live nearby so I can go and hassle them.
Do they have like a storefront also that's part of the building?
They don't have a storefront. I don't know how much longer they're going to be doing this, because I think they're going to phase it out. But yeah, in Saginaw, they do have like a kiosk in a place called the SVRC. So they do have like a community storefront that's just selling Oxeye Media stuff. So like Deepwater Games, Sourcepointpress. I've worked there before, but I haven't in a while now, just because of my schedule. So they do have like a community thing, but they mostly were doing that for when conventions weren't happening as much with COVID and stuff like that. Like, just here's a way for people to be aware that we're out here. But yeah, they have a big building in downtown Saginaw, Michigan. It looks haunted, and probably is. And a couple employees have bring their dogs. Travis McIntyre brings his stinky dog Dora, who's old and adorable but smells terrible. But so maybe instead the warehouse is haunted by dog farts. I don't know.
What social medias are you on? Where do you want people to follow you? Where are we drawing traffic?
Yeah. I have a couple Twitter accounts. One is Greg Wright Books, and one is Greg Henchman. And people can find out about my projects there. I'm on Facebook at Greg Wright Author, and I have a TikTok, which is just my name, Greg Wright. I think it's Greg Wright 55 of all of them. But like, people would recognize it. Like, if you're listening to this and you can see my ugly face is all over my TikTok as well. So yeah, I just mostly do like goofy stuff there, paranormal investigations and stuff like that, lots of jokes.
Not doing any dances or voiceovers?
Not yet. I mean, maybe. I don't know. Do you know anybody?
Right. What inspiration would you give to people that want to make comics?
First of all, probably you should get therapy, because the thing is, you got to read a lot, and I think you got to talk a lot. You got to talk to people like I'm talking to you. Just like, how are you getting your message out there? Because anybody can make comics. Like literally anybody. Like, I could go and draw a comic right now. It wouldn't be great, but it's not hard to make the comics. What's hard is to make a fan base, right? That wants to buy them. And the only way that I know about that is to talk to people and keep making stuff and keep talking about it. So in terms of inspiration for people, what I would suggest is, don't wait. Do the thing, commit to it, and prepare for a lot of stalled stuff. Like, just everybody I know who creates stuff, makes more, has created more stuff than they've published, if that makes sense. So, like,
Kinda.
you have to write more than gets finished, made into a finished product.
Okay.
Because you never know, like, people, I hear people like, oh, I'm so mad, I put all this money into this project and then it fell through. I hear you, that is frustrating, but the only answer is to, like, keep making things, and eventually something's going to stick, and whatever it is that you like enough to want to make, somebody somewhere is going to like it enough to enjoy it and read it and buy it. So I would say, stop delaying, because even, I've written a couple, graphic novels or what have you, and it still is one of those things where it's like, wouldn't I rather fart around on video games or watch a movie or, I don't know, just even take a nap, right? Like, isn't that cooler than doing the work? Because, it's fun to talk about, to dream, which is, again, if people just want to sort of like spin tales, that's cool too. But, like, if you want to get a thing made, you got to work on it. And it's sort of like you're your own boss, which is the worst of all possible worlds. You've got to be hard enough on yourself to say, whatever the other thing that you could be doing with your time might be fun and enjoyable and stress reducing, but you've got work to do. So you got to do the work. So I guess in terms of inspiration, I guess, like I said, talk to people, meet people, have fun. The stuff that you care about is going to be stuff that other people care about too. So,
all right. And do you fund all your comics yourself, or do you kickstart them first?
I've done one Kickstarter before. I'm not as good at some other people that at Sourcepointpress with Kickstarters. For instance, Dirk Manning and Garrett Gunn and Rich Davis and stuff. These guys do Kickstarters and stuff like that are very successful. And me, I did one Kickstarter for Monstrous, and it was a fairly modest sum, but it was, I didn't really know what I was doing, and I had a lot of help from a lot of people. But still, the month that I was on Kickstarter, I was so stressed out, I got pneumonia. So,
wow.
For the most part, I just try to say, like, okay, I am gonna put the money into this, and then when it, like, pays off, and all that money is just going to the next project. And so I try to keep it as, like, okay, it's not like I'm going to be getting rich off of this, which is not really my goal anyway. But it's sort of like I said, the only measure of success that I know is to just keep making stuff, keep putting stuff out there. I just started, this is in the really, really early stages, a comic with Stan Yak, who did the Baba Yaga comics for Monstrous. And he's done a bunch of other work as well, with a bunch of other people that, if I list it all, it will be too much to go through. But he and I just started a project, and Robert Nugent's going to be doing the colors. It's called Black Death. It's about a couple, like they're a married couple living in the Middle Ages, and the Black Death is both a disease as well as evil spreading on the land. It's making monsters. It's controlling people. The disease is still there, but it's also, like, transforming people. It's going to be very gory and very violent. The married couple, he is an apprentice executioner. She's an apprentice plague doctor. And so they're trying to fight evil and disease at the same time. And it's going to be violent and funny and weird. And, like, this, the disease corrupts things. So, like, they start out fighting, like, evil unicorns and stuff, and, ripping their heads off and stabbing them with their own horns and stuff like that.
Nice.
So, yeah, it's going to be gory and weird and crazy and stupid and funny. And so, and I have a bunch of other projects as well. That one's the one that it's like, okay, I know that's going to go through because, I've got reliable creators on it getting it done. So, other stuff I'm working on, it's kind of like, I'll tell you when I've got a thing. I don't want to tell you when it's still an idea.
Okay.
Yeah.
Have you ever taken a book to SourcePoint and they just said denied it or declined? Was just like, no.
Yeah. I've had a couple ideas. It also depends on what stage it's at, right?
Okay.
Like, at one point I came up with an all ages story, and they're like, oh, that's too little kitty, really. But now they're trying to do a Sourcepointpress kids imprint, and they're going to have Felix the cat with it. So Like, that's pretty cool. And they're like, okay, we want to build up our titles for like kids. So I'm like, okay, I'll dust this off and maybe pitch it to them again, and maybe that'll work. So plus there's always, this is something that anybody who's affiliated with SourcePoint Press does regularly, is they'll pitch an idea to Travis McIntyre or somebody at SourcePoint Press, and like it just like, sometimes we'll do gag pitches, you know, like I'm pitching an idea that I know you're going to say no to, and other times there'll be like a legitimate pitch, but it will be treated as a joke. It'll just be like, hard pass, no, hard pass. So yeah, no, while I've had a number of successes with SourcePoint Press, I do want to say that I've also had my fair share of rejections and failures too. Just
Okay.
you know, and while I'm at it, I should also talk about some personal failures I've had in my life. No, I'm kidding, but I can talk about them if you want, but it just doesn't seem like anybody would care.
Nah, if you want, yeah. I mean, is it related to comics or?
No. I was just gonna be like, oh, let me tell you about my divorce, but no, I'm kidding.
No. So, what advice would you give to people?
It depends. It depends on the person, but like I said, the first thing is to get over that hump of imposter syndrome, to be able to talk about it. I remember in the 1990s, I met the author Maxine Hong Kingston, who wrote The Woman Warrior, which Disney sort of turned into Mulan without her permission, you know? So I met her in the 1990s, and I was saying like, oh, your writing is so inspiring. I love this. And she's signing books and stuff like that. And she said, are you a writer? And like that like stung me. It like shocked me, because I'm like, even, you know, I mean, I was writing stuff, but I'm like, I'm not a writer, you know? And even now, like if somebody asks me like, what do you do? I'll be like, oh, well, let me tell you about my day job or whatever. Or, I mean, I'll tell them I write comic books, but it's like, I'm not doing this full time necessarily. And like I said, I don't know that I have that as a goal just for security and paying the bills and stuff. But I would say get over the hump of not wanting to refer to yourself as a comic book creator or an artist or a writer, because I feel like that sounds really pretentious. And I know that earlier in my life, I was like, somebody's going to have follow-up questions like, oh, are you a writer? Yes. What have you written? Oh, nothing you've read. Or, you know,
Right.
Get talking about it, you know, plug into this network of people who, on the one hand, comics fans can be really, really like snarky and judgy and stuff like that. But also, like when you're talking to a person, like when I'm talking to you, I have never found anybody in the comics community who's not at least on some level supportive and encouraging. They'll at least listen to your stuff. They'll at least care about it, you know, enough to hear about it. And a lot of them will be like, hey, yeah, I'll check that thing out. But I think the hardest thing for creators is getting over that initial hump of like, you know, oh, I don't want to talk about this because, you know, I haven't done it. You know, they want to wait till they're at Stan Lee level. Nobody will ever again be at Stan Lee level. It's just not going to happen. So like refer to yourself however you want to refer to yourself right now, you know, and sort of speak it into existence. Even if you don't have something published, if you can say what you're working towards, I think people take you a little more seriously and want to know what you're doing and how you're getting there. And like you had mentioned, crowdfunding, the hardest part is getting the money to start something. But again, if you're like, okay, I spend a lot of money, look at your own budget. What are you spending money on? Can you set aside some of that, however much is comfortable to you, build it up until you can fund something? Or, you know, like I said, like you were saying, like a Kickstarter or GoFundMe or, you know, a crowdsourcing thing, you know, get it together. But the hard part with crowdsourcing is from my experience, it's better to have the thing all the way done or mostly done beforehand. So yeah, you don't wind up not being able to deliver or something like that. But yeah,
Right.
get over the hump, talk to people. Sorry, I cut you off. I'm like, talk to people, and then I'm like talking over you.
Thank you, Mike. So I was just going to add to what you were saying. So you could break even on what you paid for the book and pay for printing with crowdfunding.
Yes, absolutely. And again, that's, you know, I've known people who've had crowdfunding projects that fell through because they didn't get enough funding. Don't let that stop you, you know, keep going, keep pushing. because you never know what you're competing with, right? You can't before you set it up. Like, what else are people who might be interested in funding it? What else have they got going on that month? You know, did their car break down? Did they get laid off or whatever? Or is it like, hey, this is a big month, like this weekend, everybody's excited about the Batman. They want to go see the movie, The Batman. It's like, that's great. But that, like, if you've got any other movie, that's not as exciting as the Batman, right? You know?
Yeah.
And I know too that my comics are competing with Batman. And it's like, how that, nobody beats Batman. How do I do this? So I've got to have comics that I'm not saying I'm better than Batman. I'm not saying my comics are better than Batman. But I think that you have to keep in mind where it's like, here's characters who've been around for, 80 years, and I'm competing for people's dollars just as much as that. So, like, I would not take it personally if somebody is not buying your thing or not funding your project, because it's like, keep trying and eventually something's going to click with somebody, but also listen to people. If maybe your project's not clicking with people yet, maybe you need to talk about it differently or frame it differently or change something about it. So, like I said, I think the best thing is get yourself out of your mole hole and get out in the world.
Well, I appreciate it. I appreciate you taking the time to come talk with us, Greg. Is there anything you want to say before we go?
I'm sorry I talked so much. I feel like
I love it. That's what we want.
So yeah, check this stuff out. Also, I wanted to give you an exclusive. Here's an exclusive thing. I've never talked about this anywhere else. After Monstrous, the Book of the Dead, and after Heaven's Rejects, we've got a Monstrous event coming up that's going to involve multiple creators, and it's going to be a very big, splashy thing. I'm really excited about it. It's in the early stages, but I wanted to talk about it here first. So you got yourself an exclusive there. It's going to be this a big 8-issue event that's going to go on all at the same time. So, like, it's not a crossover with another property, but we're going to be bringing in a lot of other creators to tell this big, elaborate, global story about Monstrous. It's going to be really cool.
Well, thank you so much for that, Greg.
Thank you, Cody. Appreciate it. Thanks so much.
Yeah. Thank you.
What? You mean you haven't subscribed to Comic Chat Authority? Oh, come on. Subscribe already. What are you waiting for? It's no big deal. Like, man, don't forget to tell him to hit that like button. Yeah, that too. Just subscribe.
So how's it going, my Comic Chat Army? We're here today with Dirk Manning, the creator of Hope, Twisted High-Ons. Let's see, Butts in Seats. What else am I missing?
Tales of Mystery, Nightmare World, The Adventures of Cthulhu Jr., Dash with Dirk, Right or Wrong. And to be fair, co-creator on Hope and co-creator on Cthulhu Jr. and writer of Haunted High-Ons. But yeah, all kinds of Sourcepointpress goodness and some other stuff. So yeah, man, thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you for coming on. This is the second time we've got a chance to talk to you.
I know it's been a minute, but it's been a crazy couple of years, so I'm glad to be back. Thank you, man.
Yeah, so what have you been up to since the last time we talked?
A lot of work.
Yeah.
Yeah, gosh, when was the last time we chatted? Was it? Gosh,
it was like in April, I want to say.
Yeah, it's been a minute. So no, honestly, I mean, things have just been booming, man. Butts and Seats, Tony Schiavone's story, that Kickstarter launch came out. We did that. That became like a #1 bestseller on Amazon, so that's really cool. First original graphic novel advertised on cable television, #1 crowdfunded wrestling comic of all time. That's really awesome.
Yeah.
So you're really stoked about that. The book's been very well received. Now I'm officially on staff at Sourcepointpress, so that's cool. Special projects manager.
Mm-hmm.
So really excited about that. Keeping our Sourcepoint theme here going. We just wrapped up the Kickstarter for Tales of Mystery Volume 5 and the Tales of Mystery Act 1 Omnibus, which is going to reprint the first 4 volumes, all in full color. We're wrapping up the backer kit on that and getting ready to get that out to print. Working on Haunted High-Ons Volume 2 wraps up in March this month. So the last issue that'll be dropping this month, I believe on the 23rd. And yeah, just line up a bunch of new stuff, man. Homestead, Hope Volume 2, Cthulhu Jr. will be in May. Right or Wrong, Volume 1, Second Edition, Right or Wrong 2. Maybe another little surprise thing or two in there. So yeah, just staying busy, man. You know, I mean, it's really what it comes down to. I think the pandemic gave a lot of people opportunities to kind of realign and recenter a lot of things and things like that. And I really felt good about, you know, the pandemic had a lot of bad stuff in it, obviously. But, you know, you also have to kind of, I think it's important also to focus on the positive stuff as much as you can as well. And just give me time, I think, to recenter and kind of realign and readjust things. And I really feel like in a lot of ways I'm back to my roots and what I'm doing, which is just grinding out work and working. And now, you know, having this, you know, as we're celebrating SourcePointPress month, you know, having the position with SourcePointPress formally, Special Projects Manager, it's going to allow me to keep writing as well as doing some other cool stuff for the publisher. So busier than ever, you know, is really what it comes down to, man.
And all the books you listed off, we can get at our local comic shops, right?
Yeah, you can get them at local comic shops now. You can get them through sourcepointpress.com, or they'll be coming out in the near future. You know, 100 High-Ons you can get at local comic shops, provided that they're not selling out. We're starting to get reports now the books are selling out again, which is cool. You know, same thing I warned people last time. I was like, these books will sell out. Get the issues while you can. But yeah, you know, or yeah, you know, through sourcepointpress.com, someone through Amazon. It's funny, I did one of those things where I know a lot of people don't have local comic book shops. I always tell people, if you can support a local comic shop, do that. And if you can't do that, you can buy the SourcePoint Press books directly through sourcepointpress.com. They do a really good job shipping things out and things like that. So you can do that. But I also know a lot of people, you know, use Amazon, and that's fine, obviously. And it's funny, I was kind of going through Amazon recently and found out like a lot of my older books now are sold out through Amazon. Or what happens is like they sell out and then like a used one comes up at like ridiculously inflated prices. You know what I mean?
Yep.
But books like The Nightmare Old Omnibus are gone. You can't get them on Amazon anymore. You know, I have some left here and that's it, you know. So yeah, you know, I would say try to support a local comic book shop if you have it. You don't have that, order through sourcepointpress.com. I know a lot of people are still funny about ordering directly from the publisher, but they have a fulfillment center, or we have a fulfillment center in-house. It's what we do. We ship books all the time. You got an Amazon gift card, burn a hole in your pocket. You can pick up things like Hope there. You can pick up Haunted High-Ons there. You can pick up some of my other work there and do that. Check it out, you know, and check out some of the other cool SourcePoint Press. Check out the other interviews you're doing all month. You know, it's great creators, man. You know, there's just treat yourself to new stuff.
I agree. Is SourcePoint Press going to go back and reprint issue 2, I think it was, or 3 of volume 1 of Twisted?
Oh, of Haunted High-Ons Volume 1. At this point, I think they're just focusing on the trade paperback, you know, honestly. So, yeah, it's funny. Issue 3 of Volume 1 is like the hardest issue to get. Because what happens is, and not to get too deep in the weeds on this, but comic book stores have to order the books 3 months in advance. And here's some real talk about how most of this stuff works. If a comic book shop orders 1,000 issues of #1 of a book, which is not going to happen, you know, so let's go to a more realistic number. Let's say 100 copies. There are 100 copies of issue #1. On average, you'll find usually the orders of issue 2 are 50. And then issue 3 is another half of that, about 25. And that's usually where your sales will level out, you know. It's just the nature of the beast, you know, and I'm not disparaging anybody, but there's just statistically, that's what you look at. So what happened with 100 High-Ons Volume 1 is you got stores order 100 #1s, 50 #2s, 25 #3s. You got to order issue 3 oftentimes right around the time issue 1 is hitting the stands. Well, what a lot of people didn't realize was how many new people would be coming into the comic shops to get the books, right? So what ends up happening is by the time issue 3 was ordered and the orders were locked, 1 hits the shelves, everyone comes piling in and start getting the issues, and the orders were locked on #3. They were able to bounce back up a little bit for 4 and 5, but at that point our print runs were locked, you know. So issue 3 became a very tough one to get your hands on. It's funny, just yesterday I was at a con and someone can't find #5, which is the real cool of issue of Volume 1 of Haunted High-Ons, which is the one that has like the jam piece cover with like Blaze is on the cover, Alzul Ilu's on the cover, Draven's on the cover with Twisted and Felicia. But yeah, you know, so that's there's some inside baseball for I guess all of you about how this stuff works. which is why I always encourage people, if you want the issues of a book, you got to let your comic book shop know, pre-order it, and then get in and get it. Get it the week it comes out, because these things start to flit out, or if people come in looking for it. You know, the years ago, I'll tell you, man, I had a buddy of mine who runs a comic shop, and I'll never forget. I was a teenager, and I went to the shop looking for a certain back issue of a book. And it wasn't even that old. I'm like, oh man, you don't have any, this issue left, man. I'm really kind of, bummed out. I wanted to get it. And he told me something I never forgot, and I've carried this with me through my whole professional life as a creator. He said, the issues don't make me any money sitting on the shelf. I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
Touche. He's like, I order him to sell them, and that's it, so just for those of you out there watching this stuff, Comic Business 101 with Dirk Manning. But so
Yeah.
at this point, I would just, tell people focusing on the trade paperbacks, and part of it though is the fun. You get to like hunt down back issues and things like that. That's cool. But yeah, issue 3's tough. That's a tough issue to get up on at Ions. And I suspect we're going to be seeing that with Curse of the Green Book issues 3 and 4. I think we're going to have that same thing again. We just did a 4-issue miniseries this time. And already people are starting to realize, like, oh man, you better grab those issues while you can. They got those A covers by Marianne Pascosta and Alessandro De Fornassari. You got the B issue variants, but again, those are going to start disappearing. And I mean, like this covered issue 2, the A cover by Mariana. I mean, the kind of the jaws on my. I mean, gosh, look, it's just so gorgeous. And then of course, Life List moment, Shannon Mayer doing that B cover with Felicia. So yeah, get them while you can, friends, because once they're gone, at that point, SourcePoint, I don't want to speak for SourcePoint, but by and large, we don't do a lot of second printings. We just focus on the trade paperback at that point. So something to keep in mind.
All right. Hope Volume 2.
Yes, sir.
When's that coming out?
It's in production right now. Really excited working with Sally Scott on Volume 2. I've worked with her on many things over the years. She's done stuff at Nightmare World back in the day. She has stories in String Buried But Not Dead. She's in Butts and Seats. That is actively in production. In fact, just yesterday I was looking at more pages from that. So that'll be coming out next year. This year is so jammed up with stuff. We got the Arn Anderson graphic novel on the horizon, as well as all the other stuff I mentioned. I know I let people on a monster cliffhanger with that book, and I'm just super excited to keep jamming on that. So, but Hope Volume 2, I think at this point we're going to be looking at next year for that, just to get it out and give it time to promote it and breathe, along with all the other stuff going on.
Okay. Where can people meet up with you, or what Comic Cons you're going to be at, so we can get books signed?
Yeah, man. Yeah, I love getting to meet people at cons, sign books, get books in people's hands. I would say, here in March, I'll be doing Fantasticon Toledo in Toledo, Ohio, and that is going to be March 12th and 13th. Another big show I'll be doing is, of course, Astronomicon in April. That'll be April 22nd to 24th in Livonia, Michigan. So I'm really excited about doing that show as well. My Astronomicon 5 and my 5th year at Astronomicon, so I'm really excited about that. It's a great show. Corey Taylor's going to be there. If you're a wrestling fan, the NWO is going to be there. The Terrifier is going to be, just all kinds of cool stuff. But my full convention appearance are at dirkmanning.com. Again, people can check that out. There's a Google Calendar. There's an events calendar link at the top, or just scroll down the page. My calendar's there. You can add stuff in that way. Yeah, so I got that. May, I'm going to get a shout out of a cannon. I'm doing like 4 shows in May, because I'll be promoting a new Kickstarter in May for Cthulhu Jr. But yeah, people can check that out, as we kind of get back to normal with the conventions again, and conventions slowly starting to slide back to their normal spots. You know what I mean? So, but also with the amount of work I've had, going on and stuff like that too, I'm continuing to reevaluate my convention appearances. I used to joke right before the pandemic started that in 2020, I was only going to do 20 appearances. Like, that was my goal, like only 20, which a lot of people are like, only 20? You you're saying that's still like almost, every other week almost, but again, you got all these books coming out and some of the additional responsibilities I'm doing with the company now. It's just going to be a matter of continuing to realign that. But I love doing conventions. I love meeting people. I love getting to sign the books. I love getting to promote the books. But I'm going to continue to realign that as I go, I think, moving forward. Kind of get back to what I wanted to do before 2020, which is probably going to be fewer, bigger, fewer shows, in some of the bigger shows, in some new markets I haven't hit before. But also like returning to friends shows, Fantastic Toledo was a really cool show. My friends at Cherry Capital Comic Con, Traverse City, one of my favorite shows of the year. But then still picking up things like C2E2 and New York Comic Con and Motor City. But every weekend I'm one place is a weekend I can't be somewhere else, and a weekend I'm not at the computer writing. So, but yeah, DirkManning.com will have all that. You can also sign up for my newsletter, DirkManning.com. I send a newsletter once a month, and I'll have updates about projects and where I'll be as well.
What advice would you give to new writers out there?
It's funny. I just did a panel yesterday talking about friend shows and things like that. I did Great Lakes Comic Con, and I did a old school right or wrong panel. I just went up there, didn't have a presentation or nothing. I said, let's just talk about making comics and answer people's questions. And I think one of the biggest things that you have to make sure when you're getting started is really focus on writing the stories that only you can write. And to do that, I think you have to find that passion project. And a lot of us, a lot of creative people, a lot of times we tell ourselves, well, I'm going to get to the point that I write my passion project. And you want to be careful not to sabotage yourself there, because I think a lot of people try to get into writing by writing things that they think are going to be the easy pickup. When Walking Dead blew up, everyone's writing zombie stories, or their dark urban vigilante story, because like, oh, this is like Batman. If you're telling me your story is like Batman, newsflash, I can go read Batman, right? I don't. What's on you? What's the hook on what you're doing that's going to get me to read your stuff? So I think it's really important to kind of tell the story that only you can tell. What's your passion project? I use Tales of Mystery as a perfect example of this. I tell people all the time, I love writing hope. I love writing haunted highlands. All these books I do, they're all my kids, right? And I love them all, and I'm very proud of everything I do. But if I had to write one series forever, if you said, Dirk, you can only write one thing, and that's it, it'd be Tales of Mystery, hands down. At its core, Tales of Mystery is a book about a street level magician, paranormal monster hunter. You got Hellboy, you got Hellblazer, you got the Goon. I mean, to some extent, you have things like Doctor Strange, right? When you boil it down to its essence, there's a lot of books out there about monster hunters. There's tons of them. I would even argue things like The Witcher. It's a monster hunter story. But the way I approach that theme, that plot, that archetype, whatever you want to call it, it's a story only I can tell. And people that read Tales of Mystery, for example, they may pick up the book because they like book about monster hunters, right? They're like, oh, I like that kind of stuff. I like that horror noir. But that's really like a passion project for me, because I tell that story and I explore that in a way that truly only I can do it. That is a Dirk Manning book through and through, in terms of the pacing, in terms of the storytelling elements, in terms of some of the plot stuff we do. And even you go back to my first series, Nightmare World, it was the same way. Horror anthologies have been done since close to the beginning of the medium, right? But Nightmare World is a horror anthology only I could do. When you take 52 stories and they're all standalone and the same writer and different artists, but they all weave into one big thing. So as a writer getting started, again, I would say find your passion project and realize if it's outside the scope, if your ability does not yet meet your ambition, I think it's important to know that too. But at the same time, it's also important to realize we only get so much time and you only get so many opportunities. So you really want to go out and just start with that thing that you're passionate about and that thing that only you can do. Don't worry about writing something that you think is going to help get you picked up. What will get you picked up, what will get you noticed, what will get you readers is the thing that you're passionate about. And that's crucial. Yeah, and Yeah, sorry, we had to skip there for a second. Obviously, we crashed the internet with my whole tirade, but that's the big
Yeah.
thing. And I think the most important thing that you have to do is, again, just find that thing you're passionate about, and lead with that. Lead strong. We only get so much time, so start with what you like and go from there.
Okay. Do you run Kickstarters at all?
Oh yeah, yeah. Well, the OG's a Kickstarter, man.
Okay. What advice
Yeah.
would you give to people that want to run a Kickstarter, or what's something that you see that people do wrong on Kickstarter?
Yeah, oh my gosh. I think one of the biggest things that really jams people up on Kickstarter is I'll tell you one of the big things is not being aware of your shipping costs. That could wreck you. I've known people that have run $100,000 plus campaigns that have lost money.
Wow.
Because of their shipping, international shipping especially. So that's a big one. It's funny when we write Right or Wrong Volume 2 and we talking about crowdfunding, but I think that's one of the big ones. Be aware of your shipping costs. And also, the other thing with Kickstarter is I like to tell people is that, and this sounds so obvious, and I try to stress people, I'm not talking down when I say this, but I'm not talking about people when I say this, as obvious as it may sound. In order to crowdfund, you have to have a crowd, right? Then on top of that, you need to be able to activate your crowd. I would say on average, your social media footprint, maybe you're looking at around on average 1% of those people will actively support your campaigns. 1%. That's what you have to budget for. That's what you have to count on. And that's not that I'm not saying that they're fake friends, and I'm not saying that people are bad, and I'm not saying that social media should only be used to sell stuff, but those are the numbers, man. I mean, that's it. I have so many creative friends that are running so many projects all the time. And sometimes all I can do is give them a signal boost. And sometimes things slip by me, And quite frankly, sometimes there's things that just like, I'm talking right now in a room full of books. And it's like, you can't buy everything. You can't support everything. But I personally, I always try to, do something to help out my people. But I also am actively invested in this. I'm a super backer on Kickstarter. I was, like I said, I was on the ground floor of a lot of this stuff with crowdfunding. But have a crowd. Be able to activate your crowd. Be aware of your shipping costs. Those are some of the big ones.
Okay. All right. Is there anything you want to say before we go?
Again, sorry we crashed the internet there for a second.
Yeah.
No, the big thing is I would say is, I guess I want to say thank you to you for doing the project group hug, right? The Sourcepointpress. Yeah, I love that. That is so cool, man. And we appreciate your support. And to all of you out there that, are watching this because you're familiar with my work, I want to encourage you to check out all the other interviews you're doing. Check out some of the other Sourcepointpress creators, check out another Sourcepointpress book. Sourcepointpress has been grinding for a long time and putting out really high caliber stuff. And I'm not saying this because I'm on payroll. I'm saying this because this is just, truly how I feel. Sourcepoint is putting out even more high quality work than I think they've ever done in their already impressive publishing tenure to date. So many new creators and so many cool books. And really, when you look at something with the Sourcepointpress logo on it, you're going to get a really high quality of work. Check out the work. Go to the website. Check out the other interviews that that we're doing here. And just check out some new creators. Discover some of your new favorite stuff. If you're reading something that's not actively bringing you joy, or if you're habit buying books, consider phasing it out. Mix it up a little bit. We're coming out of a pandemic. Knock on wood. And refresh, restart, check out some new things, man. Treat yourself and check out some of the work Sourcepointpress is doing. You might find some of your new favorite comics.
All right. Thank you, Dirk Manning, for taking the time to come talk with us.
I appreciate you, man. Thank you. Thank you all of you for watching.
What? You mean you haven't subscribed to Comicchatauthority? Oh, come on. Subscribe already. What are you waiting for? It's no big deal. Man, don't forget to tell him to hit that like button. Yeah, that too. Just subscribe.
So how's it going, my Comic Chat Army? We're here today with Ken Perry, the inker and colorist for Shelter Division, right?
I'm the artist. I actually don't do the colors, but that's okay.
Artist. So, how did you meet Sourcepointpress? How did you get linked up with them?
I was originally working with some people at Comics Experience. It's a comic kind of collective. It's a school, online school by Andy Schmidt, who's worked for DC, Marvel. He did like Annihilation and Guardians of the Galaxy. I had met somebody, a writer, through Comics Experience, and we made Wretched Things, and we got chosen through Comics Experience and SourcePoint for them to publish the book. They were running a publishing deal for a while, and they were doing some Comics Experience books. So.
Nice. And we can get your book at any comic shop, right?
Yes. They can be ordered through comic shops, through SourcePointpress website. If you contact me, I can steer you in the right direction. Most of our graphic novels are on Simon & Schuster as well. So.
How long have you been drawing for?
Long time, since I was a kid. I grew up in a shitty neighborhood. So at a young age, it became I could just go outside and keep getting in trouble, or I could stay inside and occupy my time somehow. So.
I agree. So what got you into comic book art?
I like telling stories through the artwork. I have a degree in painting and sculpture, and even like my fine art stuff was very not sequential, but I tried telling a story within the painting or the sculpture itself. There was always some sort of narrative to it. So it seemed kind of the next step.
And what pages do you have right there behind you? Is that Kylo Ren, the third one?
This one is Darth Maul by Dave Dorman, who did all the painted covers, Star Wars covers, back when I was a kid. So.
And what's the other?
Gordon of Gotham by Klaus Janson. Steve Scott, it's a Judge Dredd. It's Judge Death in the background, and I have a Ryan Otley on that side. A beat up Invincible, which is always a classic one that he does. So.
Oh yeah. Comic-Cons. Are you going to any Comic-Cons recently?
I think my last one was a local one in Fairhaven, Mass. Before that, I was in DC, Boston. I couldn't go to New York. I had a close contact, so I had to stay home from that one. So.
Since you're the artist, do you ever draw yourself or family into the comics somewhere?
Oh yeah, I always try to do that. You got to sneak things in, hidden images. Sometimes it might be something subtle, like a background element, like a building you like, or you try and throw a dig at somebody that you're friendly with. There's some people that you know, artist friends. You try and throw something at each other.
All right. And what is I don't think of the name of the book. When is issue 2 coming out?
Shelter Division. Issue 1 is currently in comic book shops. This is the retailer cover. Issue 2 will be out February 23rd, which by the time this airs, it'll already be out there. Issue 3 is the end of March. So. They're all new covers now. We did run a Kickstarter that had special covers for all the books, and we had a hardcover edition that we did as well. This can actually still be bought through the SourcePoint website.
Nice.
My first hardcover I've had done. So
are these your first books ever?
No, Wretched Things I had done before this. That was a 4-issue book. That was basically you had this old Victorian house that the vermin took over, the rats, the spiders, the centipedes, all the creepy crawly things. They took over this old Victorian house. A young couple buys the house. They move in and try and fix it up, but the vermin rise up against them. It's like a twisted secret of Nim. which already scarred a whole generation of children. So
Where do you draw your inspiration from?
a lot of it comes from work, kind of the grittiness. I'm a professional firefighter, so I see the other side of kind of not the pleasant side of things. So I've been to plenty of car accidents and seen some carnage. So you kind of take that and throw that in, you know.
I get what you're saying. So really quick about your firefighter career, is it like a 9 to 5, or you just on the call?
We work an 8-day rotation, so we do 24-hour shifts. So this week I can work Monday and Thursday, and then next week I'll be doing Tuesday and Friday. But it's 7 a.m. to 7 a.m.
Okay. And you just, like, is it like you see in the movies, you got beds and everything, and you get to slide down a pole?
We've actually gotten away from sliding down the poles. It's the whole, like, cancer, carcinogens. They've actually been sealing up the pole holds at work. Wow. They're trying to discourage using them. Diesel exhaust comes up through the space around there. So it's still fun to do. I mean, some of the stations have them still, and we still use them every once in a while, but it's, you can be a little kid. Right,
yeah, that's crazy that I didn't even think about the carbon monoxide coming up there.
Yeah, I mean, just the diesel exhaust, a lot of things are changing with the job. The gear we wear is actually, not to get crazy into it, it's fluorinated. The stuff actually, it's PFAS and PFOA. It actually causes cancer. I don't know if you see the commercial about, are you a former military firefighter that worked with firefighting foam and they had all these lawsuits going on? We actually still use that foam, and the gear we use that we wear, the turnout gear, is actually made from that stuff. Wow. One of the guys I work with is actually, him and 12 other guys got together, and they're actually suing the chemical manufacturers because they've never really told anybody and revealed to anybody how dangerous this stuff really is. They play the game of, you're walking into a burning building that's got all, everything's plastic nowadays. That stuff, burning plastic will cause cancer. So they point at that and say that's what did it. But really, it's also the gear you're wearing is hurting you too. So it's a whole crazy side of things.
Yeah, that's super fucked up. Like, for you to wear the gear to protect you, and it's just harming you.
Yep.
Do you do consultations for art?
Yeah, I will talk to anybody about process and how I work. A lot of times at conventions, I get people who come up to me and they just want me to look at their work. A lot of times people contact me, just to reach out and do a commission. Sometimes it's the writer that wants me to do their 100-page epic, for exposure, which you kind of brush off to the side. But I'll talk to anybody about art or creating.
What's the most common mistake you see people make in art?
Probably trying to, not oversell yourself, but you're overpromising. People don't realize how much work actually goes into getting a comic finished and printed and out there. It's time consuming, and it's a full-time job in itself. I mean, if you're trying to break in or you're doing it on the side, you got to realize that some people actually do this as a career, a full-time career. So it's going to take a while.
So how did the Kickstarter work? Did y'all do the Kickstarter, then when it was funded, Sourcepointpress distributed it?
Yes, we did the Kickstarter actually probably 2 springs ago.
Wow.
And we had, the world turned upside down about 2 years ago, and it was kind of bad timing on our part because right in the spring we're like, buy our book, and everybody's panicking that the world's ending. And it was successful. We were selling them at conventions, but it totally, with everything going on, it messed up the actual publishing schedule. So for now, we've actually it's the same books, but we put different covers on, and now we're selling them to retailers too. So.
Do you have the diamond code on you by chance?
No, but I can forward it to you.
All right, I'll add it down in the description.
Yep.
So what are you working on now? If all three are finished, what books can we expect from you in the future or later this year?
Currently, I'm working on day 165, which might be coming to Kickstarter soon. I'm not sure if we're doing a Kickstarter or if we're going directly to retail. I'm looking at my board over there that has all my projects on it. Day 165, it's a Vietnam War story, kind of a spooky war story. If you follow me on social media, you'll see I have all these jungle scenes and action and Huey helicopters, all Vietnam stuff. I'm also working on Salvagers with Bob Sally. It's his space opera. It's kind of like Sanford and Son meets Star Wars. We're really dating ourselves with the Sanford and Son reference, but there's all these wrecks out in space, and they go out and they salvage them. But while they're salvaging, they get mixed up with black ops and aliens, and all kinds of craziness happens. So there's 10 issues. I'm jumping in to help him with the final 2 issues of this story arc. So in the end, it's going to be 6 double issue sized issues. So.
Okay. What social medias are you on?
I do Instagram and Facebook. I tried Twitter, but I couldn't take it anymore.
Yeah, I think Twitter's more for politics.
Yeah, I try not to get into that. Nobody's ever happy with anybody else, so I try to stay away from all that stuff. Facebook, you can find me at Ken W. Perry, and on Instagram, it's Ken Perry Art. But I post the same things on both.
All right. Let's see. What Comic-Cons are you going to locally?
So far, I just have Wicked Comic-Con in April. It's April 9th. They used to run Boston Comic-Con, but now they're running their own. I'll be at Boston, which is in August. Terrificon in Connecticut, that's in the end of July. So I only have 3 so far, but I'll be doing more. It's just early in the year still.
All right. What advice would you give people that want to run a successful Kickstarter?
It's a lot of work. It's definitely a roller coaster. Every day, like that first day, you get a lot of pledges, and then it kind of tapers off, and it's a roller coaster every day. You're constantly checking it. Just have a lot of good rewards there, and definitely fulfill it. Nothing is worse than somebody getting strung along for months and months with no updates. Deliver on your promises is the big thing, because then that's your reputation from there.
All right. Do you have a website or anything?
Yes, kenperryart.com. I post process stuff on there. A lot of my past work, I'll show like my inks. I do some videos on there, but I post where I'll be, where you can find me, what books I have coming up.
Perfect. Do you sell any of your original art?
Yeah, a lot of times at conventions, I'll have my portfolio on the table. Some people kind of expect it to be cheap. I'm getting too old to be cheap, so I definitely I have my prices up there, but I do fairly well. I make almost as much from original art as actual book sales. So
nice. Yeah. Do you have a favorite page from issue 1?
Issue 1, I actually didn't do. I jump in partway through issue 2. Issue 1, it's not my art, but I love the style. It's got a lot of action to it. Probably my favorite part of that book would be the reveal for Biggs, which is the son of Bigfoot. basically Shelter Division. It's this government agency. They solve strange crimes by using these unusual individuals. You've got Biggs, who's the son of Bigfoot, Chaplin, who's an immortal, but he's got pieces of him all chopped off. He doesn't know how immortal he really is. And you have Roswell, who's the Roswell alien.
Nice.
And by providing these people with shelter, these unusual people with shelter, in exchange for that, they help the government solve these crimes. And that's where it all starts, is these crazy thefts of high-tech gadgets and stuff.
So what was it going to spell out without it being redacted to say shelter?
Oh, I can't tell you that. That's part of the...
Is it part of the story?
Yes, eventually. Me and Bob, once I get Salvagers done, I'm doing the pencils for Salvagers. We're going to move over back to the next series of Shelter Division, the next volume. So that's hopefully by the spring, I'll be working on the next volume of that. And we can get it going by hopefully the fall.
Okay.
Get it out to people.
And then little pieces of the redaction's going to go away to spell something else?
It will eventually, yeah.
Right.
There's a lot of mystery to it. That it's kind of got a spookiness and overall mystery to it, kind of like, I guess you could say, like X-Files, where you keep revealing little bits and pieces of people's pasts and how they came together. But it's the government; they're gonna fuck with people and screw with them. So,
yeah, okay. What advice would you give to people coming into comics for the first time?
Just don't let anybody take advantage of you. There's a lot of people out there. I think early on, when I was trying to break into things, I signed up with people, and you find out right away that they're not what they say they are. You know, a lot of people try acting like they have something going on, or people will get contracts too. People will promise the world to you, but then they don't follow through. You know, there's no payment. So always cover yourself. You'd probably be the best advice.
What do you do in a situation like that you do the art but don't get paid?
I had a situation where I did a zombie book. It was a novel that this guy had written. I illustrated some of the pages for him, and later on he wanted to do like an open-ended run, and I tried to tell him that we never negotiated like you only had this one run of the book. And it became a sticking point for us, to the point where he's publishing the book now without those pictures in it. It just always have things outlined in a contract, who has rights to what, how much you're entitled to, whether it's work for hire, like you're just getting paid to draw the pages with no royalties. There's always that sliding scale, and that's how I work with people. Like, if we're going to split things with royalties, I might not take as much up front, but if I'm getting all up front, you're not getting just outline everything in the contract, and entertainment rights too. Everything nowadays, like Netflix and all these shows that they have, a lot of it's coming from comic books, graphic novels. So there's money to be had out there, so don't get screwed out of it. You see a lot of Robert Kirkman is a serial offender. He's got some great work out there, but at the same time, you see his name in a lot of headlines or stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. All right, Ken. Is there anything you want to say before we go?
Nah, just if you're a creator, just keep on kicking ass and sticking to it. And if you're a consumer and you love this stuff, buy more of it. Support us.
All right. Thank you for taking the time to come talk with us.
All right. Have a good day.
What? You mean you haven't subscribed to Comicchatauthority? Oh, come on, subscribe already. What are you waiting for? It's no big deal. Like, man, don't forget to tell him to hit that like button. Yeah, that too. Just subscribe.
So how's it going, my Comic Chat Army? We're here today with Rich Davis, the creator of Rise of Dracula. How you doing, Rich?
Hey, man, I'm doing great. I hope you are.
I'm doing good. I'm glad to finally get you on here.
I know, yeah. It's been a minute. We've been trying to make this happen, so I'm glad we're here.
Yeah. So the Cult of Dracula, is it out now? Can we get it at our comic shops?
Yeah, so Cult of Dracula wrapped up in the November or December of last year. So it's Cult is out in trade paperback form in comic book stores all over the world. I mean, you can go to Target and buy it, which is really cool. Barnes and Noble, Amazon, it's all over the place. Rise of Dracula issue 3 just came out about a week ago. So it is issue 3 of it is in stores everywhere. Issue 4 will be coming out later this month, and then there are 2 more issues after that for Rise of Dracula.
Sweet. Have you ever been in a Target or a comic shop while someone's holding your book and be like, "Hey, I made that"?
I have. When I travel, I'll just drop in on comic book stores just for the fun of it. And if I see somebody with my book, I'll walk up to them and I'll be like, "Hey, would you like me to sign that?" And it opens up a great conversation of, why would you want to sign my book? And I'm like, well, I kind of wrote it, and so it's really fun. People really dig it, and I love just doing things like that. It's a good time.
Okay. Comic-Cons. Are you attending any Comic-Cons coming up?
Yeah, I actually start this weekend. Kind of starts my tour, I guess. I'll be doing a couple small ones here in Tennessee. This weekend I'm doing Smoky Mountain Comic and Toy Convention. It's going to be a little thing nearby. Then I'm going to the Dice Alliance charity event. We're raising money for the victims of the Paducah Mayfield tornadoes. Big Apple Comic Con after that. I'm doing Heroes Con in Charlotte. And then we're in the process of booking all the different shows and places I'm going to go, but plan on hitting 15 or 20 this year.
Nice. Where can we get a schedule where you're going to be?
You can go to our Facebook or Instagram pages. It's just Cult of Dracula Comic. We post all of our stuff on there, and we are in the process of relaunching our website with updated information, and that's just cultofdracula.com.
All right. Can people buy copies of the book off the website too?
You will be able to very soon. We're converting it over from kind of a billboard page to a store. So you'll be able to do that. Right now, you can go to nirvanacomics.com. That's my comic book store, and you can buy directly from me there. But soon we'll have it up on the Cult of Dracula page as well.
When you say your comic store, is that like you own it, brick and mortar? It's yours?
Yep, I own Nirvana Comics in Knoxville, Tennessee. I have 2 business partners, Grant and Jazz, that run it with me. And honestly, since I've been out doing writing and promoting the book and things, they're in the store more often than I am. But I'm still there. I still go in a couple times a week. I'll just go into my office, and usually I've got a stack about that high of books that people want me to sign. So I go in, spend a couple hours signing books, and ship them out to people, and just then go back and do my writing.
Nice. How much do you charge for signatures, or do you?
Nope, I don't charge. If you bought the book, send it to me with a return shipping label. I'll sign it and send it back, no problem.
All right. And what's the address to your comic shop?
It's 6709 B as in Baker, Kingston Pike in Knoxville, Tennessee.
All right. So how long did it take for the novelty of having your own comic shop? Is it still exciting every day?
I love it. It's a different thing every single day. It's challenging. People get this idea in their head like, oh man, I'd love to own a comic book store because that means I just get to sit around and read comics all day. It doesn't work that way. There's a lot of work involved in running a shop, and it's a precarious business. It's not a high margin business, so you've really got to make sure you're spending your money well so that you're making a profit. But I love it, man. I mean, I love the people. I love being around comics. I love being around that culture. It's a really cool experience to be able to own your own shop, but it's also very challenging.
Nice. How long have y'all been open?
Nirvana's been open here in Knoxville just for a couple years. I had the store in Wilmington, North Carolina for several years before that, before I moved to Knoxville. So I'd say all in all, I've had a comic book shop for about 10 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
Nice. So I know this might sound kind of cheesy, but do you ever hold book signings at your own comic shop for yourself?
Yes, we usually we do book a lot of people to come into our shop and do signings there. And I'll go in, once, twice a year, I'll go in and do, like maybe when a new #1 drops or something, I'll go in and just sign the books. But also, people here in Knoxville know they can just come into the store and find me, pretty much all the time. So I'm not special in my hometown really, because I'm just here all the time.
Right. All right. Are you indie comic friendly? Like,
Oh,
can people
absolutely.
contact you?
Yep. We were one of the, when we founded our store, that's really what we went hardcore into, was the indie books, because we were in a competitive marketplace where there were some legacy stores that, they kind of had the Marvel and DC stuff on lock. So we decided, well, instead of fighting for those same people who were going to come and buy the Marvel and DC books, we're going to lean hardcore into the indie genre books. Superheroes really only make up about 30% of our footprint at Nirvana. Most of the vast majority of the books we sell are genre books: sci-fi, fantasy, horror. Horror is huge for us. So we focus on that, and then we've built a great customer base from that. And we still do sell capes and tights, but it's mostly genre focused.
Okay. Where can people contact you or send their book to see if you want to carry it in your store?
Absolutely. Just go to the Facebook page is the easiest. We all monitor that, so hit us up. Send us a DM. We'll take a look at what you got, and if it makes sense, we can make some dollars on it.
All right. I like it. Might use that as a title. If it makes sense, we're going to make dollars.
There you go.
Yeah. So what was the inspiration behind the Cult of Dracula?
It actually, what's really funny is it started as kind of a joke. I was having lunch with a friend of mine named Rob Mann, and he was directing a stage version of Dracula in Wilmington. And he had a great cast, great set. Everything about the show was awesome, but he hated the script. And he was talking, it's like, there's just no such thing as a good Dracula script anymore, because the things that were scary to a Victorian audience, they're not really scary to us anymore, because we've seen this character spoofed, and we've seen Leslie Nielsen play it, and so Dracula just really wasn't scary, especially in the stage version. And so at that lunch, I was like, you know what, I'm going to write a good Dracula script. And Rob kind of laughed, because he knows that if I ever say I'm going to do something, no matter how crazy it is, I'm going to do it. So I went back and I started writing the original stage play for what would eventually become Cult of Dracula. So we produced it on stage for the first time back in 2013. It did exceptionally well, ran for a month of sold out shows, was nominated for several North Carolina Theater Awards. It won a few of those. And I decided I wanted to try to adapt it into a screenplay, because at the time that's where my background was, theater and film. And so life happened. We weren't able to commit the time and energy and resources it would take to do an independent film. And I actually almost gave up on it. I was like, my wife had become very ill at the time. She ultimately passed away in 2020. But when she became sick, it was like, I just don't have the time to do this. So I was giving up on the project. I actually deleted it. And Amber got so pissed at me for deleting it. She's never yelled at me like that in my life. And she's like, okay, I get it. We can't do it. We can't do a film. I understand. Why don't you try to do a comic book? It's like, you don't need $50 million to do a comic. And I was like, I could do that. So, I started adapting the screenplay over to a comic book form, and contacted a few friends. Georges Genti was a good friend of mine. I talked to him about hooking me up with an artist. He put me in contact with Henry Martinez. Henry and I worked very, very well together on the first 2 issues of Cult of Dracula, and then the train just kind of took off. Had to do it all myself in the beginning, especially, and now thankfully I've got Sourcepointpress behind me, because they've helped me take this book to astronomical levels. But in the beginning it was just me and my bank account funding the whole thing. So it was pretty wild.
sorry to hear that about your wife. Yeah, you just answered my question. I was going to ask, did you fund it yourself?
Yep. Sure did. Yeah. The entire thing, I had some investors in the beginning that believed in the project as well. So,
Okay.
but it all came out, and it wasn't as expensive as I was afraid it was going to be, but it was very expensive to be able to do, because, I wanted to, I wanted to go with, a professional artist with a resume, and I hired pros to be my colorist and my letterer. I didn't cut corners on it. And I think that, that's one of the reasons that helped it, find success is, quality people were working on it.
So this is your first comic book ever?
Yeah. Cult was my first. Rise is volume 2 of that same story. And then I'm going to close that up with Reign of Dracula, which will be out sometime later this year. That'll be the 3rd chapter. But we're also in the process of considering launching a larger shared horror universe. In Rise of Dracula issue 3, I introduce Victor Frankenstein as a character in this world. So my next book after the Dracula saga is finished is going to be an adaptation of Mary Shelley's Frankenstein called Prometheus in Chains. And then we're going to tie all that together into one large horror universe, which, will be later on, we'll tell maybe a werewolf story, maybe we'll do the Mummy, definitely going to pull some witches in there. So yeah, it's ambitious, but SourcePoint, I believe, is behind it. And we've got to have some meetings and discussions to finalize how everything's going to go. But I think we're going to be able to take a big swing for the fences with this property.
Is there talks to turn this into a movie?
Yes. So Cult of Dracula has already been optioned by Sure Pictures. So it is in development right now to be a something kind of like a television series, but for a streaming service.
Okay.
So yeah, there's not a lot I can say right now. I can say that we've had some very high level meetings with Tony Todd's representatives. So he is attached to the project. We've been discussing the project with some very recognizable showrunners, which I hope we'll be able to say something about that pretty soon.
Please tell me that you're going to be in it or have a small part somewhere.
Maybe I'll get to pull the Stephen King thing where I'm an extra, like a hotel clerk or something, or a dead body. That'd be awesome.
Or can't think of the movie, Jay and Silent Bob, where they used the comic shop.
Yep. That would be kind of cool. Yeah. I hope they'll let me have some sort of little cameo thing in it. That'd be awesome.
That would be perfect. I mean,
yeah, be a good time.
Have you wrote yourself into the comic at all, or family, or anybody?
I haven't written myself, and the characters are all, like, I haven't directly written myself in there, but the characters all represent a certain part of me, my fractured, psyche or whatever. There's a little bit of me in each one of the characters, and definitely a lot of people I know have influenced those characters. And every now and then I'll, like for a background character, I'll ask Puis to draw, like, hey, draw my friend Rob in there in the background somewhere. And, and so he'll do things like that. Cause you got to come up with all these different looks for all these different background characters anyway. So might as well make people that famous. Nice.
Has anybody recognized anybody in the background like that?
My cousin Nate, he's a Marine, and so we were drawing some soldiers in this one scene. And so I had Puis draw one to look like him, and he texted me. He's like, "Holy crap, you put me in your comic!" So yeah.
Nice. What advice would you give to new people that want to make comics?
The best advice I've ever received is finish your script. If you finish your script, you're already in the top 20% of scripts that get attempted, because 80% of people who start a script don't finish it. So if you can get from beginning to middle to end and see it through, you're already a top 20 script out there. So there's a lot of places you can go from there. So no matter how frustrated or difficult things seem, see it through. Don't bail in the middle. Get the script finished, and then big things can happen after that. But you've got to be willing to put the work in, the time in, the effort in, to finish what you start, or you're not going to get anywhere.
Okay. Let's see. Oh well. Trying to think of a question. Oh, what social medias are you on? Sorry.
We're on everything. Facebook and Instagram are the best ways to get us. Cult of Dracula comic. We do have a Twitter account, but I don't Twitter. Twitter terrifies me, so I stay the hell away from it. We are looking at getting on TikTok. I don't know what the hell I'm going to do on TikTok, because I'm not an attractive early 20s female. I don't dance. I'm not funny. I don't know what the hell I'm going to do on TikTok, but everybody keeps telling me I need to get on TikTok. So we're working on that to see if we can figure out a way to make sense, to provide something to the TikTok audiences out there, something that has value. But I have no idea what I'm going to do yet.
I think it'd be cool to see the day-to-day of a comic shop owner.
Could be, yeah, definitely could be.
There's
a lot of craziness that goes on.
Yeah, and you said there's a lot of stuff behind the scenes that people just don't see.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Every day there's a new and different challenge. There's always something unique. Usually something fun happens every day, and usually something very frustrating happens every day. So it's a fun time, running a shop. But that might actually make something interesting for TikTok. I don't know.
What's the wildest experience you had being a shop owner?
The wildest, I would have to say, we went, of course, this was also, I was on a Netflix series called Swap Shop. My store was on there. We were the comic book buyers. And so we got to go to this, got a call. This guy had a collection in Chattanooga, which is about 2 hours away. And so we drove out to see his collection. And when he opened his garage, he said he had a lot of comics, but usually when people say that means they've got, maybe 10, 15 boxes of comics. This guy's entire garage was full of Silver and Bronze Age comics. And I'm usually the calm, collected person. I'm the person who handles the money and the numbers, and because I don't lose my mind very often, I don't get excited very often. But I could not contain myself just seeing this sea of amazing comic books in this guy's garage. And ultimately, we did make a deal with him, and everybody made a lot of money. But God, there was some every. Hulk 181, Amazing Spider-Man 1 through like 50 was in there. X-Men, Fantastic Four. You name a Silver or Bronze Age key, and this dude had it. I lost my mind over it. It was such a great buy.
So really quick before we go, what episode was you in? Because I seen one about a comic shop, and he was going to go buy an arcade cabinet.
That's us.
As far as I got.
Yep. That's us. We were in. We were in season 1. We were in episodes 4 and 6. We were core cast members, so we were one of the teams that were competing on the show. And then in season 2, I think we're in a couple of episodes, and then we're in discussions about a season 3 now. So yeah, it was a lot of fun to do.
So I wish you'd have told me this earlier, because this would have been fun to talk about.
Sorry.
No, you're fine. So the money, is it your money that you put up, or does Netflix say, hey, this is the budget, buy stuff?
So everything that we bought, we actually bought on there for the store. So we're spending our money. Netflix paid us to do the show, of course. But all of the when we bought this collection, we bought it, and we bought the arcade cabinet, we bought it. So yeah, I mean, there was nothing. It's a reality TV show, so that means there are some scripted moments, like the cutaways. That stuff is like, they're like, okay, so when you were looking at this, you said this. I need you to repeat that line in the cutaway. Or they'll ask us a question, so what were you thinking when you saw that? So that part of it's kind of scripted. But the buying part, when we went on these picks, we didn't know what we were going to find. So that that's all real, and that's one of the reasons I really enjoyed doing this show, because the producers, the showrunners, they didn't come in and they didn't make up all this drama and create this fake tension and stuff. It was just all about picking the stuff and having fun, and I think that's what made it a very successful show.
Nice. Well, I appreciate you taking the time to come talk with us, Rich. Is
Yeah,
there
bro.
anything you
Thank
want to
you.
say before we go?
Man, just thank you for having me. Thank you for supporting Cult of Dracula and Rise of Dracula and all these books from Sourcepoint Press. Please continue to support your local comic book shops. LCSs are the backbone and the heart and the soul of this industry. And if the local comic book shops go away, everything gets dominated by these massive corporate retailers. And the only comics you're going to be able to find will have Bat Dude and Spider Guy in them, and you won't get anything else. So please continue supporting your local comic book shop, and that way they can keep telling you about really awesome new indie books.
All right. Thank you, Rich.
Yeah, thank you, man. Glad to be here.
What? You mean you haven't subscribed to Comicchatauthority? Oh, come on, subscribe already. What are you waiting for? It's no big deal. Like, man, don't forget to tell him to hit that like button. Yeah, that too. Just subscribe.
So how's it going, my Comic Chat Army? We're here today with Johnthan Thompson, the creator of Tales from a Dead Astronaut. How you doing, Johnthan?
How are you?
I'm doing good.
That's good. That's good.
So how did you get hooked up with Sourcepoint Press?
I got hooked up with SourcePoint just through the regular submission portal. When we George Gavato, the artist for Tales from the Dead Astronaut, we put together the book in pieces in their kind of anthology story formats over the course of probably 3 or 4 months, and then we put it together as a self-published version, which I think you saw originally over at Comic Impressions.
Yeah.
And then we just sent it out everywhere, just kind of like cold sent it out places. I didn't really think much of it. It was just like a fun thing for us to do. And then SourcePoint came back, they loved it, and we were off to the races. Then I needed to figure out where to go with issues 2 and 3, but we put that together pretty quickly.
Yeah, I was looking through it. So the art is amazing. The Dead Astronaut and like, I don't even know what they're called, the space anemones or something?
Yeah, like the troglodytes, little things on them. Yeah, that was fun.
Awesome.
It was fun because with George, it's like he just he was the first artist that I really worked with. And when we first started working together, I was very like strict on what I wanted, what I was looking for, because I was trying to like form it in my mind and forgetting the fact that he's an artist and he has his own instincts. And once I realized that I need to let him just fly, things made it easier, because I could just say, put a weird alien, and he threw some weird aliens on there. And I was always surprised and caught off guard and loving everything I got.
It is a beautiful book. I like the art.
Yeah. He has such diverse styles through each story too. I remember when we first put it out there, people were surprised that it was one artist that did the whole book, because each story has a different feel to it that kind of makes it separate, which is what I kind of love about George's work.
Okay. So without spoiling the book, do we find out why the Dead Astronaut is the Dead Astronaut?
No. I like the kind of like Grant Morrison cycle of life thing where there is really no beginning or ending. By the time you finish all 3 issues, you could literally just loop his story back around and start again.
Is there going to be an issue 4?
Not yet. Me and George are thinking about what we're going to do next, how we're going to approach things. I have far too much on my plate, which is always fun, but it's just fun to collaborate in that world with them.
And Sourcepoint Press is putting these books out, right?
Yeah, Sourcepoint.
Can they get the original that you printed before?
I don't think I have any left. We printed I think 250 of them. We sold a good chunk in the beginning, and then I kind of used those as like bonus Kickstarter rewards through various Kickstarters that I ran. And then when I was at New York Comic Con this year to like promote it because it was on the eve of its release, I just gave out the rest of them. So they're out there.
Nice.
And that one was like a little like digest size version, which I really like that format.
Yeah. I think it was like that big. It was like
Yeah, it was a nice like put it in your pocket.
Mhm.
I like that.
So with Sourcepointpress, you're going to be in all the comic shops, right?
We were, yeah. Well, by now all 3 have been out. The trade comes out at the end of March, so that's going to be exciting. But yeah, it was exciting, talking to comic stores, getting it in shops, seeing how many people ordered, and then it's always fun seeing people like post that they have their copies. When you see like the comics, the shops like their weekly shot of their wall, and you're like, well, where is it? And there it is. And then you get depressed when it's not there, and then you find one that it is there, and you get excited again.
Have you done store book signings yet?
No.
Is it in the future? Do you plan on doing any?
Maybe. There's a couple shops around here. I have my own shop in Harrison, New York, All Yet Comics, and I signed a bunch. He would hand me my copies. I sheepishly would sign them, and they would go on the wall.
Nice. So you've got your very own comic shop?
Not my own personal shop.
Oh,
no,
okay.
no. Like my shop that I go to, which is, of course, an hour away from where I live.
So are you going to attend Comic-Cons in Massachusetts, right?
Connecticut. No, just New York Comic Con.
Okay.
Work is busy, so it's not easy to get around. But I was there this year with Sourcepoint, and I got to hang out with the booth with them, and that was a lot of fun. Got to meet everybody. Everybody's super cool there, so it was a really fun time. And a really fun time just seeing people like just engaging with comics that way, because I've never done it that way. I'd only been to Comic-Con once before as a fan, and then to be like sitting behind a booth was a very interesting experience, and also like having my bundle of comics to just pass out to people and hand to different creators was really fun and cool.
So did you fund the comic all yourself, or did you?
Brutally so.
You did.
Well, Tales I funded myself because we did it in pieces. That's like my best advice to anybody that wants to create comics is just like it's hard because an artist deserves their pay rate, and it'll take a healthy chunk. So to create a 24-page comic, you're looking at upwards of $2,000 just to get the art.
Wow.
But that's where I started with short stories. Me and George put it together over several months. By the time it was done, we had this complete thing. We put it together. I funded everything that way, and then hand sold it $4 a piece, and just tried to get as much out there. I knew I was going to take a loss, but that's not what was important to me. It was just like the creative act. There's nothing more satisfying than like starting with the script, getting each page in your inbox, and then when you finally get that printed version and start sending it out to people, there's a lot of fun there.
Oh, I can imagine. I don't have a comic book personally, but I see a lot of people light up when they actually get the physical media in their hand.
Yeah, it's exciting. When you get that box in of all your comics that you did, and you're just like, holy shit, it's real, we did it. Like, oh God, what did we do? So yeah, it's fun. But that like started an addiction then, From there, I hooked up with Italian artist Rossano Pinocchi, and we put together Burn Residue as a 3-issue series that we did as a Kickstarter. I mean, I still ate a bunch on that, even, funding that. But like, it's great, it's addicted. And then I did another one, and then I did another one. And then I found like Kickstarter is a great way to pay the artist, pay for the print run, pay for the shipping. I don't make a dime, I'm still losing money, but I have everything now. I have those completed things. in this past, I say over between 2020 and now, here we are in 2022, I've produced about 300 or 400 pages of comics, like printed comics now, and it's like awesome,
You've only been doing this for about what, a year and a half, 2 years?
Yeah, about so. I would say George and I we started short stories. It was probably more December 2019, but like very slowly, just like this 1-2-page story and then a 4-page story. And then midway into 2020, that's when we really just like lit a fire under everything.
Nice. Is SourcePoint going to pick up Burn Residue also?
So they're going to pick up Burn Residue as a graphic novel, and they're going to pick up my last one, Night of the Comet, as a graphic novel as well. And that one has some pretty wild art by Attila Schwanz. It's very reminiscent of like a Bill Sienkiewicz style of art. Very I mean, he's multimedia. He uses every tool you can imagine to create these pages. I implore you guys to check out my Instagram because I post stuff there all the time, and it's wild. It's it's a 68-page hardcover that the version that we did for Kickstarter is a hardcover. I think it's going to be a soft cover when it comes out from SourcePoint. But it's wild. It's like it's my Yakuza noir that I've always wanted to do. That turned into something much more different and much more poetic in a way. It's about a hired killer with a taste for blood who is set upon like an aged samurai who's ready to die. And it's a clash between those two forces. And it's wild.
I'm gonna have to pick that up.
Hey, you're gonna have to look that one up. And I still have the best place to go for a lot of my stuff is spacestationz.com. That's kind of like the brand that I've set everything under. And I have some copies left for pre-order on there for Night of the Comet. So this will be the hardcover version, and then in the fall we'll have the soft cover out from SourcePoint.
Do you have diamond codes or lunar?
No, nothing yet. Nothing yet. I think probably in early summer that stuff will start to get out there.
Right. I'll
Yeah.
circle back and add it to the description when you get them.
Yeah. And then Burn Residue is the story of Willie Boyd. He is a gas station attendant who is burnt head to toe from a incident in his past. And one night while he's pumping gas, a car pulls up that is driven by one of the men who lit him on fire years ago, and it sets him on a tailspin of revenge. And that's another just a crazy, insane, brutal piece of work that is about how far you can go and like what that does to you.
Right. Where do you draw inspiration from?
Everywhere. I'm a big film guy, so film. I do find a lot of ways film and comics are similar because it's about that kind of like selected image to guide the story. So that's been really fun. Where each image is a moment and each panel is a moment, and then building the pacing and the rhythm from there is a lot of fun. In terms of like comic book inspirations, I've been steeped in it for my whole life. I'm a big Superman fan. I have when I was a kid, I met a guy who used to draw Superman. I think he actually helped create Supergirl, Al Plastino, and he gave me a Superman drawing, a Superman versus Lex Luthor drawing. So I have that, like coffee stained and soda marked and not in its best shape as it was received, but it's beautiful. So I get to look at that every day and remind myself of where I want to be.
Nice. Yeah, you said you got a website, social media. What social medias do you want everyone to?
So Instagram's the best place. Everything is really under like the Space Station Z moniker. On Instagram, we're Space Station Z, spacestationz.com, and then on Twitter, it's Commander of Z, CMDR of Z. but Twitter is, Twitter you can see stuff, but I think a lot of stuff gets lost in the mix. I think Instagram is really the best place because I post stuff all the time of everything that I'm working on. I post pictures of Night of the Comet that I have. I post pictures of this new piece that I'm putting together for a Kickstarter that's going to launch probably end of March at this point. It's called Airplane Mechanics. It is a 48-page graphic novella with this artist, Jeff Manley, he does Riley Teenage Bigfoot. You should check it out. It's very fun. It's a very more comic in the comedy sense. It's about these two brothers who man their family airfield. Their parents just sold the airfield for a housing development, and they're kind of lost figuring out what they're going to do next. And one of the brothers decided, let's fix up this plane that we've had sitting here our whole lives. They funnel all the money that they got from the sale into putting this plane back together, and their hope is that they're going to fly it out at the end of the day. But this plane is a rickety piece of crap that smokes out, and one brother is not confident that it's going to fly, while the other brother is saying, trust me, it'll fly. So that I love this one. It's going to be great. The Kickstarter for that is going to be probably later March, because I want Night of the Comet to be in people's hands before we put it out. We're in no rush. We're going to have the Airplane Mechanics is going to be fully done by the time the Kickstarter launches, so it'll be a quick turnover. But that one, you guys can sign up and follow that one along. In my on my Instagram, in my profile, there's a link tree where you really can get to everything.
Okay. I'll grab it and add it to the description.
I'm sorry?
I said I'll grab it and I'll add it to the description.
Yeah, that would be great. Yeah, that would be great.
What advice would you give to newcomers that want to get into comic books?
Well, like I was saying before, find an artist that you don't need someone that's Jim Lee. You need someone that can tell a clear story. And, they're going to be expensive in the long term, but save your pennies. Come up with a 4-page story, a 6-page story, whatever it takes. It's better to learn that economy of storytelling anyway, and then just do it and put it out there. Build something up. I mean, I think Tales from the Dead Astronaut is the perfect case study. We did that. Now we're going to be in Barnes and Nobles when the trade paperback comes out. It's it's crazy stuff like that. It's, when you walk into a regular comic shop and you see this thing that you put together, thinking that no one would see, and then you find out that you sold, collectively probably 5,000 copies. That sounds like a huge, crazy thing.
Barnes and Noble.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's always fun when you see people reacting to it that you have no idea who they are. You just see, oh, I picked up this crazy thing. It was awesome. And you're just like, yeah, it is awesome. Thank you. It is crazy. It is awesome. Thank you for buying. And keep spreading the word.
Have you just randomly signed comic books, like your comic books, in shops before?
Just the ones from the shop that I go to. I haven't been that bold. I'm very reserved. Even when I went to, when I go to my shop on a Wednesday and I know that my comic is coming out, I don't even ask for it. I hide my head in the corner. My shop owner, he's like, sign these. I'm like, I guess I should. All right. It's humbling almost.
So I've always wanted to ask this. When you start selling comic books, is it a weekly check or monthly check or quarterly? How do you get paid from the sales?
It's quarterly. I haven't gotten paid yet, but I think that's coming soon. I kind of knew that going in, and that can be the hard part sometimes, because you really need the book finished before they're ready to publish it, or ready to even announce it or ready to even schedule it, because they need to know that this book's going to come out, that there's going to be no hiccups. And I get that. But then, it solicits 3 months ahead of time, and then it comes out, and then I think it's still another, because it's quarterly for this, I think I'll get paid for 1 and 2 at the same time, and then I'll get paid for 3 and the trade paperback in the quarter after. So it's a bit of a wait, but that's, I think once you're rolling, that weight doesn't affect you anymore. When you have stuff constantly coming out,
Yeah.
it's less of a problem.
Okay. Is there anything you want to say before we go?
No, just check out the Instagram, Space Station Z on Instagram. That's really the best place. There's a lot of cool stuff up there. There's also a link to my Substack, my newsletter, where I'll post comics or I'll post, just articles about what's going on, fun stuff. I don't do it much, but when I do, it'll be something fun to look at. I am working on a kind of chapter by chapter story with artist Gabe Ostley called The Private Eye, and that's fun. It's about a big eyeball detective, and you could read the first chapter. I think the first chapter is on my Substack, but I also know that we're going to be in the Spread Love magazine next month, so that'll be fun. Yeah, it's always fun to see people pick up stuff and run wild with it and just see it everywhere. But also, one of the stories from Tales from the Dead Astronaut, Another World Part 1, was in Infinite Worlds magazine, like I think a year and a half ago now, like before we were even, like just after we were picked up by Sourcepoint. So there's a lot of stuff everywhere.
Okay. Well, thank you for taking the time to come talk with us.
Thank you.
What? You mean you haven't subscribed to Comicchatauthority? Oh, come on, subscribe already. What are you waiting for? It's no big deal. Like, man, don't forget to tell him to hit that like button. Yeah, that too. Just subscribe.
So how's it going, my Comic Chat Army? We're here today with George Michail and Chris Cam, the writers of Cover of Darkness. How are y'all doing?
Good.
Doing
Yeah,
great.
thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you for coming on. So how did y'all two meet?
Well, we're cousins.
Really?
Yeah. So it was a birthday party, I'm pretty sure. I might have been one. I don't know. Something like that.
So, all right, I guess a different question is, was both of y'all doing comics before this one?
No, actually, I've always been a writer, but I tend to gravitate more towards prose, and George has always been a comic writer more so. So we just combined our two loves and came out with this.
Nice. So why the classical monsters?
Oh, we love them. We love horror and suspense, and when I was a kid, I watched Monster Squad, like 80s. It's kind of like Goonies meets the Universal Monsters, and scared the crap out of me. I was like 6 years old, and ever since then, I've had like a love-hate relationship with those baddies. And we're just thinking about like, well, what kind of story could we tell? And we really like the idea of taking horror and putting it together with fantasy and kind of creating something new. So this is kind of an epic. This Cover of Darkness book that we've created. It's a 6-issue miniseries, but we have 3 6-issue miniseries, almost like a trilogy of storylines that we're telling.
And this is all coming out with Sourcepointpress?
Yeah.
Nice. So right now I got issue 1. That's the only one that's out currently?
No, issue 2 came out as well, and issue 3 comes out March 24th.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you can ask your local comic book store to bring those in for you, or you can go over to sourcepointpress.com and just order them yourselves. Okay.
Is this so are all the classical monsters going to come together and like team up?
Yeah. It's all building. So one thing that's really cool about the way the story is structured is that each issue focuses half on our family. The story is about a family that gets separated from each other, and they're on a collision course with those monsters. And it's their journey back to each other. How far would you go to try and find your family? And then the other half of the books is a monster origin story. So with every issue, you get a standalone monster origin story. So issue 1, we got a vampire, we got a mummy, steampunk Atlantean Frankenstein, we've got Viking werewolves, and our take on the creature from the Black Lagoon. So yeah, kind of a new twist on all the classics that you love.
Oh yeah, I'm gonna show them this cover. Well, I'll put it in when I edit it. But the artist, who's the artist?
MJ Hiblin.
Yes.
Or is it Scott McDaniels?
Is
MJ
MJ
Hidlin.
Hidlin.
Okay.
Where did you find them? Like, was they already with SourcePoint, or did you bring them on?
No, actually, George was on Instagram, and he had been following MJ because he has amazing art, and he just does this dark, gritty style. And when we were at a point that we were started to look for an artist, George just reached out to him, and he's just like, that's kind of my dream job, to do monsters and just to make a living trying to draw monsters. And so he read our script, and he's like, yeah, I'm in. And the rest is history, as they say.
Yeah, we feel really lucky to have teamed up with MJ Hidlin. He's an incredible talent. He does everything digitally with his finger. He doesn't use a pencil or a stylus. It's all with his finger. And
Really?
he just moves like a man possessed, and it gives it this really kind of gritty, kinetic energy to it. And he's got a huge following too. He's got like 250,000 followers on social media, so that kind of brings a lot of eyeballs to the book as well.
I like it. It's kind of like, I don't know. I can't explain it, but I like it. It's got, yeah, like you said, the grittiness. I'll put some pictures in there when I edit it. Comic-Cons. Are y'all going to be at Comic-Cons together?
Yeah, we got some shows coming up.
Yeah, there's a couple that I'll be at, that George will be at, and then George does quite a few cons throughout the year.
Yeah, in the next couple months, I'm at Toronto Comic Con, Calgary Fan Expo with Chris, St. Louis and Orlando in May, and then I think in September we're going to do the Edmonton Fan Expo show as well together.
Going to be a little bit everywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice. What state are y'all in now? Do you go to your local state ones? Are y'all in the same?
Well, we're up here in Canada, so I live out by Vancouver, and Crystal's in Calgary.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
What advice would you give to people that want to make comic books?
I think my number one piece of advice is just start doing it. I think that's the biggest obstacle. Everybody has ideas and dreams, but if you start writing it and getting it down on paper, I think that's the biggest obstacle that stops a lot of people, is the reality of actually putting it out there and getting it into something that's cohesive.
Yeah, you can't make something better until you have a first draft down. So even though you're second guessing yourself and you're questioning whether or not it's good, you got to get it on paper, because as long as it's rolling around in your brain, it's not really getting any better. You got to put it on paper and then go and do your second, third draft. And my other piece of advice would be to start small. Don't go with a like massive epic, 18 issues. Start small. Do like a 6-issue story, or sorry, a 6-page story with like, and get part of an anthology. Feel out an artist, and kind of build off of that.
How much of the book is completed right now?
Right now, we're working on the last issue of the second miniseries. So, yeah, we've got these 6 issues right now. They've been done for over a year. So we're working on the middle part of the trilogy.
Wow. Are you going to keep the numbering going, like 6, 7, or is it going to start over back at 1?
Yeah, back at 1.
Okay.
In our heads, sometimes we'll refer to, like, we're finishing issue 12 right now, but they really are 3 distinct miniseries in and of themselves, and it continues the family's adventure. So you get a lot of monsters and a lot of that family continuing, but each miniseries is its own tale.
All right. How is it working with family?
It's pretty good. Yeah, it's great. Like, it's a lot of trust, right? When you're working with somebody, that they're gonna follow through, that they're gonna do what they say. And Crystal and I have known each other for 40 years, so we can count on each other to come through and create something really cool together.
Well, it's awesome because we're both so passionate about monsters and about writing comics that we inspire each other, and we talk fairly frequently, not just about the comic, but about real life outside of that. So we have a whole relationship that feeds into our working relationship as well. And for us, it works really well. And we can inspire each other and motivate each other through it, which is nice.
Nice. I think it's so cool that y'all are cousins working together on a comic. How did y'all meet Sourcepointpress?
Well, in 2019, I hit the convention circuit pretty hard. I was doing I did 18 shows that year, and I kept on running into the Sourcepointpress guys. They do like 70 shows a year. Like they'll have multiple teams on any given weekend going to different conventions. So yeah, we kept on running into them and talk with them, and sometimes we'd grab dinner after a show or grab drinks. And there's one guy there, Chris Tadlock. He's like the warehouse manager there. He actually read the book and he was like, "This is really, really cool," and he championed it and got the people in the editorial to read it, and that's when a deal came together.
Nice. That's awesome. Did y'all kickstart it before then, or did you fund it all yourself?
We did a Kickstarter for the first issue, and we have fulfilled that. And that was before we signed on with Sourcepointpress. And we fulfilled it and finished it because the first issue has actually been done for about 2 years, just over 2.5 years. And so we're way back when we started, we did that Kickstarter maybe 1.5 years ago, George, would you say? 2 years?
Yeah. It was a while ago. But now we've got issues coming out through SourcePoint, which we're super excited about.
Yeah.
Yeah, I gotta get issue 2 and 3. I didn't know they was coming out that fast.
Well, we had a delay with the paper shortage. So issue 1 was supposed to come out in January. It didn't come out until like February 19th, and then like the following week, issue 2 came out. So it was like bam, bam, 1 and 2 in 2 weeks.
Nice. Do y'all have a favorite cover?
Well, I do love the Scott McDaniel covers. I felt so lucky to get him on the team. They're behind me here. These are the originals. Scott worked on Nightwing, Batman, just a legend that I always wanted to work with. So you can see that they're kind of similar layout, where we have the big monster head and then one of our protagonists in the foreground. And so he did all 6. So those are collectibles, and those are not a limited edition. It's a cover B, so it's the same amount. Your store can bring it in just as easy as cover A. Do you have a favorite MJ Hiblin cover, Chris?
I do. I absolutely adore the Viking werewolf cover, the one with just the just the werewolf face. Oh, that one, I actually blew it up and did a big poster of it, and I have it framed on my wall because I absolutely adore that one.
Nice. I think I like the Frankenstein cover. Number 2?
3.
3. Yeah. I'm gonna have to go back and get all the cover B's. I only got cover A right now.
Yeah.
Do you know the diamond code off the top of your head?
I don't. I can grab it for you. Or
I'll add it to the description. What advice would you give people wanting to run a Kickstarter for the first time?
Right,
it is a lot of work. Know that going in. Be prepared to work your butt off.
I would say try and have your book done before you launch your Kickstarter.
Oh, yeah.
It's happened to me where I've done a Kickstarter and then things happen with artists. On my very first Kickstarter that I ever did, I ended up going through 3 different artists. And we had like 6 pages done. I'm like, okay, I'll launch it now and it'll be great. And then that guy dropped out, and then I had another guy, and then that guy had health issues, and then I finally got a third person to come in and finish the art, and it took me over a year to fulfill my first Kickstarter, and it's just so heartbreaking. I would say, okay, so my biggest piece of advice is you can't just put it out there on your social media, because people will kind of just glance over it and won't necessarily back and support your book. What you actually need to do is message people individually and be like, hey man, remember that time in high school when I made you that mixtape? Can you back my book, please? Because really, when you're starting out, it's like grassroots, people friends and family, old coworkers. So you got to message them individually and say, hey, can you back this book? I put a lot of work into it. I'd really love your support on this. And put a little personal touch in there too when you talk to them.
All right, how do you know when an artist is right for you?
Well, I think a lot of it is personal taste, right? And that's why I recommend doing that kind of anthology thing, or maybe giving them a cover to do before you dive into like a full long-term relationship, because you can love someone's art, but that doesn't mean that you're going to love working with them. So it's nice to give them like a small sample size, like maybe a cover or an anthology story, where you can kind of get a sense of like, how quickly do they respond to emails. That's huge, right? Like it can be really frustrating when you send someone an email and they don't write you back, or it'll take 2 weeks or something like that. That's kind of a deal breaker for me. So test them out on something small, get a sense of what their communication is like, how capable they are of sticking to deadlines and actually fulfilling that. And then once you have a good sense of who they are and whether or not you want to continue working with them, then go on to like a bigger project with them, I would say.
Okay.
And I think for us, a really big thing, actually, with the 2 big projects that I've done, has been the character sketches. So just talking with them and seeing how close their vision is to ours, and how if we can meld and find that meeting point. And I think a big one for me was like MJ's Frankenstein. We had this clear vision of what we wanted, and he more than delivered. And so his ability to bring our vision to life was absolutely the vision that we wanted for our comic.
Ooh, I like it. Like, we're going to definitely read it and review it. But you said there's second big book. Is this the first? What's the second?
I'm working on another one, kind of an all ages. It's called, working title is Dragons and Bots. And so it's set in a different kind of world with dragons and nanotechnology together. It's a lot of fun. I'm doing that with the super talented Janice Blaine as my artist on that one.
Nice. Where can people get updates about that? Yeah. What social medias are you on?
I'm on Instagram. So Cam Crystal on Instagram.
Okay.
Yeah.
If you wouldn't mind, I'd like to shout out my other project as well. I have some news as this is coming out on the 16th. My series Resilient, which is being published by Absolute Comics Group, just won Sequential Magazine's Best Comic Book Award. And we won Favorite Artist for Vinzal Tabanis as well. So on that series, issue 1 is out now, and we're looking to do a Kickstarter for issue 2 in the coming months. So if you guys want to give me a follow, it's at Comic Book George on Instagram, George Michail on Facebook, or I've got georgemichail.com. You can head over there and give me a follow and kind of keep up to date on Cover of Darkness and my other projects as well.
Nice. Congratulations on the awards.
Thank you.
So, I don't think I've ever had this before. How is it working with 2 different publishers?
Oh, well, they're very different. And, you know, it's been a learning curve kind of figuring out just how the different publishers do things. But it's been great. I've been really thankful to have, it's just such a vote of confidence, right? When someone says, hey, we think your project is good and we feel like this is something that we can all be profitable on. Let's put this out into the world. It's just really validating and it feels great. So yeah, I've really liked working with both Absolute Comics Group and Sourcepointpress as well.
Absolute Comics. That sounds familiar. I think I know Absolute.
They do the White Widow series.
Yep. All right. I know them.
Yeah.
They're pretty cool. I know the only White Widow, but they're pretty good people. Let's see. I'm trying to think. Kind of ran through everything kind of quickly. Is there anything y'all want to say that we haven't touched on?
Maybe more about the book. I don't know.
Give me, yeah, we didn't do the pitch. Give me the pitch for the book.
Yeah.
Should have done that in the beginning. I'm sorry.
It's all good. Set in a medieval world, we have a mom and her 2 daughters, and she has a pair of shape-shifting nephews that turn into animals. And so what we do is we brutally tear this family apart, and we put them on a collision course with all of the worst monsters that you can imagine. If you think of your mummy, your creature from the Black Lagoon, we've got werewolves, vampires, and we have an amazing Frankenstein that we absolutely love as well. And so after brutally tearing this family apart, each one has to overcome their own obstacles, and all they want to do is reunite as a family.
Yeah, it's kind of like Game of Thrones meets Universal Monsters.
Yeah.
And with those twin shape-shifting boys, you get like gorillas fighting werewolves. You got polar bears fighting yetis. It's just totally bonkers. It's kind of like just monster mayhem together. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, and we have a lot of strong female characters in it as well, because George writes an amazing strong female character, and there's something that I've always been drawn to as well. So it's a lot of fun to write the series and just bring different concepts and characters into the story.
Did y'all write yourselves in the story anywhere?
No,
Not at all?
no,
No.
not at all.
Okay.
Though
But all
MJ, oh, go ahead.
All these characters have a little piece of us in it, though, right? Like, so when you're telling a story, and you put like kind of little bits of your personality into each one of the characters in different ways.
All right. Nobody that you know in the background or anything? I know some.
Well, MJ actually told us we've actually never met our artist. That's one of the most amazing things with the technology today is we've only done emails and Instagram conversations and direct messages. And so a couple of months ago, George and I sat down with him on a video conference call, and for the first time sat kind of as face-to-face as you can get during these times, and had a good hour-long conversation with him. And it was so fun and amazing. And something he let slip is that he put his likeness into one of the stories, and he wouldn't tell us where or which one, and he's just like, you go find me and let me know. And I thought that was brilliant of him.
Nice.
So that's a bit of a Where's Waldo for anyone who wants to go and look for Where's MJ, because I don't know where he is. But he's in there somewhere. We got a cast of thousands in this book, though, right? Because we've got Vikings and we've got werewolf packs and we've got there's a circus and goblins and orcs and dragons in the book. So there's just so many characters in there, and like I said, we're working currently on like the end of the second miniseries, so I don't know where he's hid himself in there, but he's in there somewhere, so go out there and find him.
All right, I'm gonna try to look for him now myself. Is there anything y'all want to say before we go?
No, I just want to say thank you for having us. Thanks for giving us an opportunity to talk about monsters. We really love making comic books and telling stories, and we always appreciate when anyone will give us a spotlight to do that.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having us on. It's been fun.
What? You mean you haven't subscribed to Comicchatauthority? Oh, come on, subscribe already. What are you waiting for? It's no big deal. Like, man, don't forget to tell him to hit that like button. Yeah, that too. Just subscribe.
How's it going, my Comic Chat Army? We're here today with Scott Sackett, the artist of
artist and co-creator.
Oh, all right, co-creator of Heaven's Reject.
The difference is if you're on a comic project, you're the artist and you're the co-creator, that means you didn't get a page rate, but you get paid on the back end.
Oh, nice. I never knew that.
Well, I mean, it's not technical, but if you look into it, because if you're the co-creator, you're entitled to something. But if you come in, if it's a deal where they say, well, we'll give you, $100 a page, then technically you don't get a royalty. I mean, everybody's deal's different, but that's kind of the distinction, at least in my mind. I could be wrong though. So.
And are you open for consultations? Like if people need art, are you available?
Sure. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I've been done with my part of Heaven's Rejects since early. Well, I did the lettering also, and I finished up the lettering like a couple months ago, and I've been casting about for things to do, and I haven't really found anything, and I've been bugging Greg, Greg Wright is the writer for Heaven's Rejects, and Greg is a great guy, but he's also very busy. Like me, he has a day job. And so getting him, I think we're going to kind of wait and see how Heaven's Rejects does. Of course, my hope is that it will do great, and there'll be enough interest to warrant doing a second arc. The first arc is 4 issues. It's going to be in the I think the June or July solicitations. So I guess what's that mean? It comes out in September or something like that. And I keep telling Greg we need to go to San Diego and get a big banner and we can have like a hotel suite and have a big party and invite like I don't know who you invite to these big parties. Greg is telling me that's fine if I bankroll it. I tell him I'll go half if he will, but he hadn't committed yet. So no, but I don't know what I'm hoping that we get to do something to promote the book, but I don't know exactly since it's not in solicitations yet. I don't know exactly where it's at on there. but yeah, I mean, so I'm basically just footloose and fancy free. I've been working on a little project of my own that I'm calling 1976. It's basically, I grew up basically in the 70s. I started reading comics, and when I was a kid, I have or had two uncles that were older than me. And the closest to me was about 5 years older than me, and he would get comics. He wasn't a big comics fan, but he'd get comics. And my grandma would go to garage sales, and so we get all these, just an odd assortment of comics. And so I'd go to my grandma's house, and I'd go, read my uncle's comics, and it might be like an issue of Marvel 2-in-1 or something like, an issue of Avengers or something. And there was something about, and especially the way the comics were written and the way the storytelling was back then, you would pick up this random comic and you could kind of tell what was going on, but you got a glimpse of like a bigger world. And that's what I want to do in my 1976. I don't have a publisher for it. It's going to be like one issue, and it's going to be like if you got a random comic from 1976, and I'm going to kind of work in the Bronze Age style. But that's my own thing. I haven't got very far in that, but that's what I've been working on lately. But yeah, certainly if somebody out there has a project that they're just dying to hire me for, dying to reach out to me for, I'm absolutely open to something like that.
How can I get a hold of you?
The easiest way to get hold of me is probably through my website. It's scottsackett.org. That's SCOTTSACKETT.org. There's a golfer named Scott Sackett. He has scottsackett.com. I got .org. I'm also on Facebook. I'm pretty easy to find on Facebook. There's quite a few Scott Sacketts. But I mean, this is what I look like, and this is what my profile looks like. And I'm on Instagram, and I think I'm Scott Sackett on Instagram. I have a Twitter, but I don't really do Twitter that much, just because it's a black hole every time I go into it. So some people love it. I'm not a. I post on Instagram occasionally. I'll post a lot of art, and I do a few things on Facebook, but I'm really not a big social media guy. But yeah, if someone wants to read it, absolutely, they can friend me on Facebook and follow me on Instagram or shoot me a message. My email is Scott D. Sackett. My middle name is David. Scott D. Sackett @gmail.com. Somebody can reach out to me or whatever. But
where can we get upcoming news about your new book or any book?
Probably Instagram or Facebook would be the easiest way to get information from me. Like I said, I have a website. My website is a great place. It has links to all that. It's also a great place to see my art.
All right.
That's kind of, and I have some pages from Heaven's Rejects there that people can see.
All right. What other books have you done? You just only done the two?
Oh gosh. Let me give you my history. So I grew up in a very artistic household. I mentioned my grandmother, my grandparents, my grandmother, my father's stepmother. She grew up in New York City, and she was an interior decorator. And so she moved to Oklahoma. She never lost her accent, which was funny because this was in a little suburb of Oklahoma City. So she had this very thick New York accent, and she would talk to me. Nobody could understand her. Sometimes even like her own family couldn't understand her. But she was an interior decorator in New York City. And then when she moved to Oklahoma, she made, now this is going to sound weird now, but back in the 70s, there was people would hire somebody to come in their house and make draperies or curtains. Now you just go to Lowe's or whatever. But at the time, and in the 70s, Oklahoma, there was a big oil boom going on. And so there were a lot of these really expensive houses being built. And she would go into these really expensive houses and make custom draperies. And so I grew up around my grandmother doing that. I remember when I was a kid, I would see her, and she had a big table that she worked on, and she would be talking on the phone, like doing orders for fabric or talking to customers or whatever. And she always doodled, and drew this stuff. In fact, when I got older and got interested in comics, she actually took like a figure drawing class with me at the local Votech. There was a figure drawing class, and the first time I tried taking it, got canceled because there were enough people. And she told me, she goes, "Oh, Scotty, I'll take it with you." And so, and she passed away, unfortunately, a few years after that. And so I always remember that time where I would go by and pick her up, and we'd go to the figure drawing class together. It wasn't a nude model; it was a clothes model. That might have been awkward, but my grandma was cool, and so my grandma did that. My grandfather was a musician; he'd been a drummer for years. My uncle I remember did painting. I have a cousin, my cousin Mario. He when I was a kid, and this is kind of how I got started drawing. When I was a kid, he was going down to the University of Oklahoma getting a degree in fine art. So I was probably about 10, 12, something like that. And he was in school down there, and he helped my grandmother make draperies. And so he'd come up, and him and I talked. And I was really into fantasy books at the time, and so we talked about Lord of the Rings and Edgar Rice Burroughs and Conan and that sort of thing. He's the one that got me into Dungeons and Dragons. And so he would come up, and I'd see him working on stuff, drawing. He'd work on homework, drawing home. We did all these drawings, and he's the one that showed me how perspective worked when I was a little kid. And so, like in 7th or 8th grade art, we went in, and the teacher's like, okay, here's how perspective works, and they do the thing they do like telephone poles, and it's to show you like how it converges and stuff. And she showed us that, and I was like, oh yeah, I get it. And I immediately got, the horizon and all that stuff. But I wasn't really into comics as a little kid. I was more into fantasy and stuff. And then when I got a little bit older, my parents had a family friend. The family, they lived in Georgia. They moved around a lot. And they had an older son who was in the Army, and he was in Germany, and he'd gone to the World Science Fiction Convention. He was really into science fiction. So him and I kind of got along, because I was too as a kid. Oh, and still am. And he came to my parents' house, and they were there. And I don't know why. He must have been back on leave or something, because the whole family stayed with my parents. And so we were there, and so him and I were talking, and he was telling me about the X-Men, and I never knew anything about the X-Men. I'd read some Fantastic Four. I had a copy of issue 1, like 86 or something, that I carried around me forever. Again, it was that one issue that I just devoured, because there was so much into it. And I just, there was this big world that I wanted to explore through this one issue. But anyway, he was telling me about the X-Men. They're on this planet, and there's the Macaron crystal, and the Phoenix comes and saves them. It's like 113, 112, 113, something like that. The very first of John Byrne's run on the X-Men. And so he told me about this. Well, then later I had a friend who he collected X-Men, and my father worked he's in the National Guard, and they had an open house they would have on Sundays. And this kid went to my church, and so at the open house, you go out, they had these big, in Oklahoma, the Oklahoma National Guard did the big cargo planes, with they had the opening in the back with the ramp that comes down. And so you go see him. So his name was Jeff, and I was like, oh, Jeff. And he would come over to my house, because he lived a little ways away. So he would stay at my house like on Sunday afternoons, and then we'd go to church Sunday night and get handed off to the respective parents. We did that a lot. And one day he brought X-Men, and I'm going to blank on the number, but it's the first one where they fight Arcade, maybe 123, something like that. And I remember reading that, and it showed they were in New York, and they went to Lincoln Center, and they got gassed by Arcade, and they got carried off in a box. And I was just like, this is amazing. And so at that point, I became like an X-Men junkie. And I used to mow lawns when I was a kid. I never got an allowance. My parents were too cheap to give me money for doing nothing. But I would mow yards, and I was probably maybe 12, 13, something like that. And I'd mow yards all summer. My parents would help me. Like, their friends would get me yards. So I did 5 yards every week, and I got $20 a yard. And I had to mow. My dad made me mow our yard and not get paid. And there was a widow lady that went to our church. I had to mow her yard and not get paid. And usually I did one or the other. And it was my way of paying for the gas and that sort of thing. But anyway, so I would subscribe to these comics, and you could get, at the time, you would get 3 and you get a 4th one for free. And it was always Fantastic Four, Avengers, X-Men. And then there was a 4th one that I never could figure out. One year, John Byrne did 2 issues of Indiana Jones, and so I got the Indiana Jones, and he only did the first 2 issues. And there was other people. I thought the art was terrible from then on. I loved the movie and the Raiders of the Lost Ark. The comic book, I couldn't get into as a kid. But anyway, that's kind of how I got into comics as a kid. when I turned like 16, I got a job, I got a car, I put comic books off to the gas was expensive when I was a kid, so I put comics off to the side. Didn't have money for them. Didn't get back into comics until I went to art school. I originally was an architecture major in college. Decided that the math was just too much. Didn't want to do all that math, and so there's a whole story for that. But anyway, met my wife, got married, went to at the time there was a place here that it was kind of a trade school, but they had the degree the program was called commercial art, which was I was trained to do like back in the old days is like you would see like a newspaper and it had like ads in it, and people do like spot illustrations and they'd lay out all that stuff by hand before computers or desktop publishing or anything, and that's kind of what I was trained to do. And I graduated from high school in 1985. I graduated from art school in 1989. When I was in art school, one of the guys at the school there, one of my instructors, was also the manager of a comic shop, and so he had this is a crazy story. He had a watch that looked like I don't know if you remember the old Swatch watches, the plastic watches with the crazy colors.
Yeah.
I don't know how that may be before your time, but anyway, he had this watch, and I was like, "Is that a Swatch watch?" Because I was really into Swatch watch. What is that? That's really cool. And a smiley face. I had this weird red thing. I was like, "What is that?" And it was a promo watch he got for the comic Watchmen. And so he told me, "Oh, it's for this comic book." And so I bought, and at this point it had been collected into a trade. And I mean, when we first got married, we were very, very poor, but I did get an allowance for my wife. And so I saved up my money and I bought a copy of Watchmen, and I devoured it like somebody studying like the Torah or something. I just devoured it, and I was hooked again. And then when I got out, I got a job, and so then and this was like in the early 90s, and then the Batman movie came along, and out of the Batman movie, I had the Dark Knight. Everybody said, "Oh, it's like the Dark Knight Returns," and so I picked up that trade. I did have one trade. Hang on, I got to show you this. I keep this on my drawing table. So all the time I was poor, I bought this at a used bookstore, probably right before I got married, and I carried this. I don't know if you can see this. Where's the camera? The corners are rounded off on this thing because I carried it in my bag all through art school. This is for anybody that doesn't know what this is the Dark Phoenix saga. It's the first trade that they did of it, and I carried this. I'm a huge John Byrne fan, by the way, but so this one I don't carry this in my bag anymore, but I did up until this. So I got it signed by John Byrne and Chris Claremont at New York Comic Con a few years ago, and so it just stays on my desk just so I can absorb some of that energy, because I consider that like that arc and that era of comics kind of the peak, and that really influenced my art in a lot of ways. Like I said, I'm a huge John Byrne fan, still am. A lot of people dog him, but he's doing great stuff on his website right now. Did I answer your question? Oh no, you asked what comics I did.
Yeah.
Sorry, I got off on a tangent, man. If you need me, raise your hand if you want to talk, okay, Cody? Anyway, so what happened was I was into, like in the 90s, I was into comics, but it never entered my brain about making them. I was an artist, but as a kid, I'd wanted to go to the Kubert School. I'd sent off a brochure, but it's New York. I'd never been to New York. I grew up in a little suburb outside Oklahoma City, and the idea of going to college in New York just seemed super intimidating. Even though my grandmother was from New York, I had relatives that live in New York. I could have, had I really pursued it, I probably could have done it, but probably wouldn't have met my wife, so I'm better off certainly. But it never entered. Back then it was like it's crazy.